Okay. City Council is called into session. We begin with the invocation, which Councilman Goods has.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. It is my distinct pleasure to, a gentleman I've known a long time as a colleague, as a friend, going to high school and throughout the years. If I could have Pastor Cleveland Sutton come forth. Superintendent Sutton, sir, serves as the pastor of Miracle Temple Institutional Church of God in Christ and as the administrative assistant to Bishop Williams, who serves on the general board of the Church of God in Christ. Superintendent Sutton is the husband to First Lady Susan Sutton and the father of 4 and grandfather of 4. Superintendent Sutton has served the community as a law enforcement officer with the Tampa Police Department and retired as a corporal after 25 years of service. Superintendent Sutton continues serving the community as a chaplain to the Tampa Police Benevolent Association, better known as the PBA. The treasurer of the Tampa Bay Coalition of Clergy. In addition, he has done a great job in leading the invocations of the exterior and interior of all the church buildings and continues to excel in ministry. Superintendent Sutton and the Miracle Temple Church family are committed to serving God's people. And I tell you, this is a dear, dear friend, and I welcome you to City Council, my friend.
Thank you, Councilman Goods. Let us pray. Father, as we gather together, we praise you for this day and your purpose for it. Reset our agendas as we sit in your presence, for you assure us that we, where 2 or more, gather in your name, that you will be in the midst. Recalibrate our intentions and refocus our hearts. Your will for our lives does not always reflect our plans. Change them to reflect your will, God. Help us to understand that we need full clarity to walk in the unique purpose you laid in our lives. God, touch our councilmen today. Bless our great city. Bless our mayor, every councilman, every department leader. Bless this meeting today as our leaders conduct the business of our city. We ask these precious prayers in your son Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Bienfelder, Goose, Maniscalco, Citro, Miranda, Carlson, Vieira.
Here. Okay, will someone please move for approval of the agenda and the addendum?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, I believe it was, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Before we do our budget workshop, I wanted to, if I may, have a motion to move number 2 to number 1 for Councilman Good's commendation because of time issues.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, once again, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to come before you with an accommodation for what I call a real community leader. He doesn't know that he was getting this award today. In a certain part of our community, his wife is known as the head honcho and the person who drives everything together. But this man has always been there with her through thick and thin. He drives her. He gets the food for the meetings. He's there in any and every occasion for her. You know, they always say behind every great man is a great woman, you know. He has a great woman in Miss Ruth Fleming, who's here today with him. I'd like Mr. Levi Fleming to please come forward. Mr. Fleming, come here. Got to give you flowers while you're here, sir, because you've done outstanding work out in the community. On behalf of the Tampa City Council, we give you this accommodation of your great service, sir. In honor of his selfless dedication and service, Tampa City Council applauds Mr. Levi Fleming as a long-standing advocate for the residents of the city of Tampa. Mr. Fleming has demonstrated himself to be a tremendous community activist and leader. Mr. Fleming is a pillar of the East Tampa community and has diligently worked for advancement of his neighborhood and all those that dwell in it. For decades, he has demonstrated true leadership is not about position or title, but rather about the ability to motivate others towards a collective goal through one's own example. Mr. Fleming's life is a testament to the idea that when serving others is at the core of all that you do, you can change lives and inspire others to do the same. Yes. On this 27th day of June 2019, we acknowledge Mr. Fleming not only for his tremendous efforts, but also for his humility in doing so. Mr. Fleming, it's my honor and pleasure to give you, sir, because I do know I want something hanging on your wall, because I know she has plenty of things,
She
but
has.
you got to have something too, because you do
Thank
great
you so
work.
much. I appreciate it.
You want to say a few words?
Yes. This is really, I'm shocked. I had no idea I was going to receive this award, but now that I have, I'm humbled by this opportunity to stand before you and thank you all. And I just thank the whole city council, everybody that's here. You made me feel so good. Almost brought tears to my eyes. Thank you so much.
Anything from council? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your work, sir. We move next to the 9 a.m. budget workshop.
Good morning, Chairman Vieira, Council Member Sonia Little, Revenue and Finance. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you to conduct the FY 2020 budget workshop for the City of Tampa. If you'll recall, back in May, we had discussions as it relates to the current fiscal year, 2019, and our projections through September 30th. So now with today's workshop, we'll start setting the tone for the mayor's delivery of the proposed FY 2020 budget, which shall appear before council on August 1st. So with that, if I can request that the presentation be brought up. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Fixes everything, right? So just to start out, just a recap of where we've come from over the last several years and the challenges we've faced as far as balancing the budget. On the slide in front of you, the first or the top row provides you with a reminder of, in each fiscal year, our budget shortfalls year after year. And the purpose of this slide is just to give council a sense of some of the measures that we've taken over the years in order to assure that we are able to provide the same level of service with the limited resources that the city has. Starting out, just a reminder, we have in every year evaluated closely how we fill vacant positions. There is a process that the city has undertaken for the last several years to assure that any position that has been filled is fully vetted and evaluated as far as the need. In every year, we've deferred major equipment repair and replacement. We have always and will continue to evaluate our debt to identify possible refunding opportunities that would result in cash flow savings to the city, a reduction of the annual debt service. In each year, we ask our departments to look at their respective operating budgets to identify ways in which they can reduce their costs. As you can see, we've done that in every year, and the departments have operated very, very thinly. One of the things that we've done in the past also, historically, the City of Tampa has paid its general employees' contribution to the pension fund on a quarterly basis. We discovered and found that instead of paying it on a quarterly basis, that the city would save additional funding by paying upfront. And that was because at the time, with the restricted investment policy that the city had, our investment earnings were very, very low. For quite a significant time, our interest earnings fell below 1%, and that's almost unheard of. Now moving forward, we won't have that issue because voters have voted based on the Charter Review Committee's recommendation to adjust our investment policy. But however, under the terms of the prior policy, we were restricted, and instead of earning the 1%, we paid up front so that the pension fund could invest our funds at a higher rate. So that drove down the amount of the contribution. We believe in the neighborhood of about $3 million the city was able to save by taking that measure. Early on in the last administration, for 5 consecutive years in total, the city was forced to tap its reserves. Fortunately, we were in a position to tap those reserves because during the good times, they had been built to a level so to assist us in the bad times. So we're at a position right now where we are in need of rebuilding those reserves. They did exactly what they were designed to do at the time when we needed them. And so to protect the city as we move forward and face the risk of another economic recession, we are in the process of rebuilding those reserves. Just skipping forward, the other thing that we're doing is leveraging all of our grant funding opportunities. We are actively pursuing and have for the last several years aggressively pursued any grant funding opportunities there may be there, and also evaluating continuously assets owned by the city of Tampa, that it might be in the best interest of the city to sell assets, for example, land owned by the city. And then, as you recall, in FY 2018, we were forced to increase our millage rate in order to provide the same level of service to our citizens. The major information that we'll provide at this particular point is as it relates to the major revenues in our general fund. So when you hear that we are working to balance the budget, that's where the majority of the work happens in the general fund, because it is basically all the services that we offer to our community that are not funded by the fees particular fees. So everything that you hear when we're talking about budget primarily will focus on the general fund, and that will exclude our enterprise funds, which are water, wastewater, parking, and solid waste. We will touch on that at the end of the presentation, but the majority of our conversations related to budget are related to the general fund. Just yesterday, we received from the tax collector's office our certified property values, and wanted just to provide you with a history on the taxable value. In FY 2020, our taxable property value will be $37 billion. The property taxes generated from that property value is $219 million, of which almost 25 million will be the general fund's contribution for the incremental increase in our CRAs. So the net property tax revenues expected in the city for FY 2020 will be at 193.9. And just to put that in perspective, we are improving on our property valuations, obviously. So from the time that I spoke with some of you, the certified taxable values came in, and so we've adjusted our figures for FY 20 as a result of that, and that will be factored in. But just to start out, again, showing you the history, our original assumption was that our property tax values would increase 8% over the prior year. Now that we have the certification, we've adjusted our projections to assume 9% increase over the prior year. Other major revenues, just real quickly, electric franchise fees. That is the fee that we charge electric providers for the use of the city's rights-of-way. I call it like a rental fee. That's how I distinguish the difference between this fee and a tax. Back in 2012, the city increased that fee from 4.6% to the allowable under city ordinance of 6%. That's one of the check marks that you saw on the prior page, where we were able to generate a little bit more in revenues collected from this fee. However, you will see that it's been somewhat flat, and that's as a result of the usage for electric, obviously. We have more energy efficient appliances, and the utility uses are being more conservative from the customer base. So the fee that we receive from the utility companies, we're projecting will remain somewhat stable. Our half-cent sales tax has had a slow and moderate increase, and that mirrors exactly what you hear as far as our overall economy, slow to moderate growth. That's being reflected in this particular revenue stream. And I should point out that this is the same chart that you saw last month when we did the mid-year, which we provided the FY19 projection. We have now added our forecast for FY 2020. The same here for the utility services tax revenue funds. We've added the 2020 forecast to this slide. Our electric utility services tax, which is a 10% tax that's charged on everyone's utility bill in the city of Tampa. We have our forecast here, and the one that we always talk about that gives us the greatest amount of concern is the communications services tax, which is directly linked to the primary source of funding, the tax charged on use of landlines, land phone lines, and we all know that many people don't even own a landline anymore. And just to put this in perspective, back in 2009, this particular revenue stream was almost $30 million compared to what we're forecasting in 2020 at $17.8 million. So basically, what does that mean? And this is the slide that everybody really wants to get the information on. When the prior mayor talked about where we were in January, as is typical when we're starting to gear up for the budget, this was the first year in which that figure was not read. Back in January, our estimate based on the information we had at the time is that we'd be able to increase our general fund balance by $1.7 million. However, as I mentioned, we actually received the certified property tax values yesterday, and we've adjusted our figures to include an additional $2.9 million, bringing our estimated contribution back to the fund balance of $4.6 million. And basically what this means during the FY20 budget process is the mayor is currently evaluating all the budget requests and the needs to address our deferred maintenance, primarily on, during those tough times. One of the things that you saw is that we deferred equipment maintenance. Along with that, the city has continuously deferred maintenance of its facilities. So as she is developing the proposed FY 2020 budget, those are high priorities of concern that we need to start addressing, the things that we could not address when the funds were not available. The other consideration that all of this will roll up into as she formulates the 2020 budget is that considering any new decisions for FY20, their impact on subsequent years, because there is a compounding effect for every decision made for FY 2020, what that will mean as far as the escalating cost associated with 21, 22, 23, and thereafter. We will provide to you during her presentation what that really means, because our goal is to achieve fiscal sustainability, and really what that means is assuring that our revenues for the general fund exceed our expenditures. So very simply put, making certain that we can cover the cost of keeping the lights on, paying our people with the revenues that come in on an annual basis, not our major one-time revenue receipts. In addition to that, also assuring that we are rebuilding our reserves, as we talked about earlier in this presentation, to a level that the city would be able to sustain another economic recession if it hits. And we've talked about in the past that what we keep hearing from the major economists is that we can expect another recession. We hope it won't be anywhere near what we experienced in 2008 and following 2008. However, we're proceeding very cautiously as we build out the FY 2020 budget to assure that we don't get ourselves in a position where that compounding effect negatively impacts the city in years 21, 22, 23, and thereafter. So, as it relates to our enterprise funds, the way that we present this is slightly different than what you saw in our general fund side. We measure the performance of each of our enterprise funds based on the revenues that they generate, the fees they collect for the services they provide, and their ability to cover their operating expenses, their debt service, and any type of capital project improvements. You've already seen the 19 projections, so now we've added the FY20 forecast. So the bottom row, this is not a bad thing where you see the negative 4.8. In each one of these slides for the enterprise funds, what you're looking at is the use of that department's fund balance. So this has nothing to do with general fund. What it means in the case of parking, what you're looking at there for the forecast of 2020, that negative 4.8, it means that we're expecting to deplete the parking fund balance, the bank account for the parking department. They will be able to cover their costs for operating the parking system. They'll be able to pay their debt service, and they'll be able to do a portion of the capital improvements needed for the system. However, you've been made aware in the mid-year that they have significant capital improvement needs that have resulted from a study that they did several months ago. We need improvements to our garages, parking lots, and in addition to that, because of regulatory requirements related to using credit cards like we do to collect parking fees when people park on the street or in our garages or parking lots, we may have to, even though they work fine, we will be required to replace all of those collection sites for credit cards. So staff will come back before you with some proposals. What we want to do is assure that moving forward, that this system, because we've come a long way, because if you'll recall, this system was not self-supporting for many years during the recession. We'll come back with a proposal that makes sense for council to consider as it relates to our rate structure for parking. Otherwise, it would be a general fund subsidy requirement if not. Solid waste has been in a position where the system is covering all of their operating costs, their debt service, as well as cash funding their major capital improvements. So for the past 2 fiscal years, 18 and 19, the solid waste department has undergone and in the process of undergoing some major capital project improvements. For example, right now, they are very close to letting a construction contract for McKay Bay transfer station improvements, which will accommodate the increased capacity needs where our customers need better and greater access to McKay Bay's through the McKay Bay transfer station for dumping purposes. In addition to that, the department has funded a significant amount of compressed natural gas retrofit projects, so they are moving to more efficient, energy efficient equipment for the department. But moving forward, the forecast for 2020 is because they're doing those projects now in 18 and 19. They are pretty solidly grounded in having sufficient revenues to cover all of their needs, as well as maintain their required operating reserves. All right, so the next two slides, wastewater and water. What you see here is the status quo. As you're aware, we are in the process of developing, well, the master plan has been complete, which includes a $3.2 billion capital improvement program, a master plan for 20 years for the water, wastewater systems. Last month, I believe it was, we provided to you, or June 6th, I believe was the date, we came before you as a follow-up to a January workshop that we had on water, wastewater, where we laid out the master plan as well as the proposed funding scenario to address those major needs over 20 years. Council has indicated and requested that we do community outreach as we lead up to our September 5th public workshop for water and wastewater. That being said, what you see here, again, is the status quo. It does not contemplate any of the projects under the $3.2 billion master plan. As it stands right now, and what you see are cash-funded projects for those two systems. And because of the timing of the budget, the mayor, as I mentioned, will deliver her proposed budget on August 1st. We are coming back for the public hearing on September 5th. So what you will receive on the 1st will not include the master plan information. If council moves forward with adopting the master plan that will be proposed on the September 5th, that will also provide authorization to amend the budget that the mayor presented. And so we'll come back with greater details leading up to September 5th as we also do our community outreach. That being said, August 1st, mayor's budget presentation, and we will respectfully request that council allow us to come back for a public hearing on the budget on September 3rd, the first budget hearing, September 17th, the second public hearing for the budget. And just keeping in mind those dates are somewhat inflexible because we have to schedule the City of Tampa's public hearings around those of the school board in Hillsborough County. They get priority in the month of September, and so we will respectfully request that council consider the dates before you. And Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions from council members? Councilman Dingfelder, Councilman Goods, which y'all came up at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we talk about the investment, I know that the Charter Review Commission took it to the citizens and they voted unanimously to look at the new investment. Have we started that process?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, with that authorization, we had to revise the policy. We have, and council approved, I believe, last month, council approved a contract for the city to bring on an investment advisor to assist with the investments, because we're going beyond just simple investments like treasury, so we needed that expertise. And we are now rebuilding the portfolio as we speak, sir.
As it relates to infrastructure and vehicles, I know you said we deferred some years because of cost, because of the recession and so forth. So are we looking at a master plan now for that? Because I know in my district, when we talk about calls for service with fire trucks and our ALS units, citizens complain about the lack of service and time. Is there a plan being generated for a particular budget to make sure that we have these items for infrastructure? Because I know some of those stations are in bad condition in my district, and also the lack of vehicles, using a big, especially Mr. Vieira's district as well, using a big ladder truck to go on a small BLS call. these things have wear and tear on vehicles. So I'm wondering, is there any talk about a plan in reference to the fire department's infrastructure and vehicles?
Yes, sir. There's a great deal of discussion about just assuring that we have adequate fleet and also evaluating the cost associated with maintaining versus replacement and how we can address those needs. It's a large part of the discussions for the upcoming budget.
And my final comment, as it relates to our parking, we are generating a master plan for that as well, correct?
So the city, the downtown partnership created and I believe presented before council a parking plan. The city is determining what can be used for city purposes and city needs from that plan, and then building upon that plan at this time.
Because when you say a shortfall, that means we've got to get revenue from some place, especially for parking. So I'm just making sure that we've got something being generated and make sure the public has a lot of awareness. Like I say, we don't market well at times in the city. Just making sure the citizens know that things are forthcoming with increases because, as you said, the systems are changing, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And we are in the process, staff is in the process of pulling together what that rate structure will look like. And I think moving forward, Councilman, to your point, everything moving forward will come with a great deal of public outreach and communication.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dingfelder.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, probably more equally a question for you, sir. In terms of our scheduling, are we workshopping in August to say, okay, the mayor's presented her proposals. What's the protocol?
Well, I mean, we can certainly have a special discussion on it if council so wishes.
I mean, as opposed to waiting until the budget hearing when everything sort of comes to a crescendo and might get a little tighter. I was thinking about perhaps a little more relaxed atmosphere in a workshop in August.
Yeah, I certainly, if you want to bring that up during motion time and whatnot, I certainly think that's it's always good to have discussion and additional analysis. And yeah, but I'm unaware of any presently set.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. I'll do it in new business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councilman Miranda.
Thank you for your presentation, and like always, very direct and very appropriate and correct. On page 6 on the half-cent sales tax that we see from 2013 through 2020, can you be a little bit more specific? Is this the one that ends in 2026 or 2027?
No, sir, this is not the community investment tax. This is the surtax that's a half penny more than the state's flat 6%.
Okay,
So
and
it's a
talking
different tax.
About the community sales tax, that ends in when, 2026?
2026.
2026. And has that been discussed in any way, how those revenues might be replaced?
It is a consideration as we start building out our forecast. And one of the things that's critical in this point is also building out for numerous years our needs for the vehicle replacement programs, our facilities maintenance, and everything that's under the general fund obligations. So if that tax does go away, it will be difficult for the city. It will.
That's what I'm getting at. I want to make sure that we may have a backup plan. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from council? Well, thank you very much. And I know I speak for everyone, Ms. Little, when I say that you will be missed. So just know that you're a consummate professional, and you're a friend to many, and I know I'm included in that many. So you really will be missed. I mean that 100%.
Thank you. I'll miss everyone here as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And no, just with regard to your presentation, the reasonably good scenario we're at right now is you know better than anybody, is something that didn't happen by itself, though certainly luck has a lot to do with some of the things that happen in life. There were some tough decisions that have been made over the last several years. When we first encountered this recession, tough decisions with regards to spending restraint that was borne by many City of Tampa employees, that was borne by many of our neighborhoods. in terms of reduced investment and investment not being had in places where there should be investment. And then tough decisions by this council to pass budgets that maybe didn't have the spending plans that some of our constituents wanted, as well as in 2017 adjusting the millage rate. And that's by adjusting the millage rate, I mean raising taxes. Certainly something that isn't easy for council to do, but we came together, and I think that the numbers that we see today are because of some of those very, very difficult decisions. I think that right now with the economy the way that it is, we can't, I hope, see some modest investments in our neighborhoods, but we certainly have got to keep our eye on the values that we've had over the last several years of some fiscal restraint, and I know we're going to be seeing that. So, but thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
you, council.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we move to public comment. If anyone is here for public comment, please come forward. 3 minutes per person, and please begin by stating your name.
Morning, Montesna, Tampa, Florida. You know, code enforcement put a bunch of codes and fines and violations and liens on my property, millions of dollars of it. Came to the city council, nothing was done. Parked the truck out front, the mayor got more entrenched on it and filed a lawsuit against our property so I can lose my home and lose my property. And people got concerned about it, and I said to my wife, I said, hey, don't worry about it. Be prepared to lose the house, lose all the property, and lose everything that goes with it. That's the kind of person I am. Stand in honor, stand in integrity, stand in respect. You know, my mother died, 95 years of age. My mother and myself had a very close relationship. My mother died June the 8th, and June the 22nd, this Saturday, was her funeral. She's over at Rest Haven. I didn't go to the funeral because one of my sisters, a couple of my sisters, tried to trick me out of the place where it's supposed to be. So I didn't go to the funeral. I stood on principle, stood on honor, and stood on respect. And when you stand here and you hear people talk about a budget, and no one talks about a deficit, and people talk about tax increases, and no one talks about money going to the Buccaneers and the sorry Lightning and all these other sorry sports ideas and beautification and gentrification ideas they have. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the deficit. One person in the city council history talks about the deficit. That's that man right there. Nobody else talks about a deficit. Nothing said about it. And nobody talks about we're black people, 26% of this city's population, and we don't get 26% of anything other than 26% or 50% or 60% or 90% of the lockups. Orient Road Jail, Falkenberg Road Jail, Florida State Prison. That's what we get. 90% of it we get. Nobody stands in honor. Nobody stands in respect. Nobody stands with dignity. I've came to this city council about $2,500 I have in illegal parking tickets issued by the city of Tampa. Nobody did anything about it because that's why. They have a disrespect for the African man, woman, and child. I say it every week and I mean it every week and I stand on it. They have a disrespect for the African man, woman, and child. It's something they hate about blackness. It's something they hate about blackness, and that have to change. We now hear about Zion Cemetery going on. We now heard about the Vinnick development going on, trying to put buildings over black people's bodies. All that have to change. The disrespect have to change. They talking about a budget and billions of dollars, and we're 26% of this population, and we don't get nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing. That have to change. It have to change. Going forward, that have to change. Y'all treating black people bad while we living. Y'all treating us bad while we're dead.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Councilman
Mr.
Goods.
Mr. Daniels, Mr. Daniels, can you come back to the podium, sir, please? And I'm going to focus this question also to legal. For many years, I've heard about the community talks about those fines that you incurred on your home and the tickets. Has any of that been rectified, or is that still in litigation, Mr. Streeter?
Is that for me or for?
No, I think that's a question for Mr. Torito.
You state
Those are the legal department. Some of it has been, some of it has not been. That's something that's done by the administration. It's not a city council issue. Obviously, as a gentleman can come down here and let us know about it. But some of these have been rectified, some of them have not.
So we're still working on
On
that?
some of them, they're still working on them, yes. And I can't discuss them because they're kind of, it's not litigation in the traditional sense, but it is litigation. It is ongoing disputes that are going on, so we don't normally discuss those in public.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Red, if you would, I'll also call you so you can kind of give me a little more history, if you would, please, sir. So, yeah, I'm going to have my office call you. You can give me a little more background and history, if you would. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Daniels.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good morning, council members. My name is Fran Tate, and I reside in District 5 at 3405 Clay Street, Tampa, Florida, 33605. I am the president of the Jackson Heights Neighborhood Association and Crime Watch. We have been diligently volunteering in our community and other communities since the past 11 years. We are approximately 30 homeowners. I have with me several members of our association as well as board members. We'd like to congratulate the new council members as well as the re-elected council members. Our association looks forward to working with all of you. I had a change in heart this morning, and I want to bring to you the following community concerns. First, we came before you last September requesting street lights be replaced with LED lights in our community. Lights that will facilitate optimum clarity for drivers as well as deter criminal activity on our streets. The project was started but never completed. We need your assistance in encouraging the city to please complete this task. We also would like our sidewalks repaired and more sidewalks installed. Second, our association shares the concern of our community leaders like Mrs. Cynthia Few, who is the president of the College Hill Neighborhood Association. We feel it is imperative that a crossing light be installed at the C. Blythe Andrews Library. We are aware that this is a FDOT highway. We do not wish to see pedestrians hit while trying to cross Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, trying to attend the library. We prefer to be proactive in our community and not reactive. We're asking for your assistance in this endeavor. Next, we are pleading with the council to budget funding for the community center to be located at Albarn's Park. Excuse me, I'm trying to get all this in 3 minutes. We're asking for a community center to be located at the Albarn's Park. It would accommodate our community senior citizens and their daily activities, as well as our association and all other functions within our neighborhood. We've run out of space at some of the centers that we're using presently. Lastly, we'd like the third Thursday in August to be proclaimed Neighborhood Civic Association and Crime Watch Day. We volunteer countless hours to organize our neighborhoods, establish a working relationship with the various city and state agencies. We maintain our neighborhoods in beautification and safety through working diligent with the police department. Some of us have even graduated from the Civilian Police Academy. That's not an easy task, but we accomplished it. All of this because we have pride and we love our communities and we're dedicated to our communities. Thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
My name is Pastor Frank Williams, located at 1112 East Scott Street, and thank God for another day. And you all know when I come up here, I want to read some scripture to you, so I'm going to start it out in the book of Romans, whether y'all like it or not. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that ye present your body a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. Now we have to understand, people, We didn't create ourselves. I feel sorry for Tony Daniel. He tried, come down here week after week trying to explain to you, and the more he try to explain to y'all, the worse y'all treat him and me. And I've been coming down here for a long time. I thank God that I'm able to come down here. Got my walker, but that's all right. I'm pleased to be here, standing before you all, hoping that y'all would do justice for all people. Quit looking at the color of people's skin and judge them according to their character. And I guarantee you, we won't have to come down here. But the reason we come down here to see that justice be done, you got a day coming up, I think next week, probably next Thursday, 4th of July. Tell me what the 4th of July represents. Can one of y'all tell me? Can y'all quote it? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I don't think y'all treat every man equal. Y'all treat every man according to the color of his skin. And I feel sorry for those poor Mexicans drowning in the sea over there, and they got this Trump, I want to say damn Trump. You got him out there setting laws there to kill the innocent little babies. I don't worry about color people. I worry about people, period. And that's the way it ought to be. Worry about your wives, your children. And that's why I read this scripture. And the reason I read this scripture, because our body is a living sacrifice unto God. Not to satisfy ourselves sexually. We're supposed to worship and guide ourselves in the paths of God all righteousness. God the one that created us. We didn't create ourselves, and thank God for his goodness and his blessing. That's where it's all come from. We act like we somebody because we're a city council or we're a mayor. No,
Thank you, sir.
We ain't nothing but a human being just like everybody else.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
I know y'all don't want me coming up here no more. Thank God I'm going to preach this truth.
Go ahead.
God bless all of you.
Good morning, Johnny Johnson, citizen of Tampa. First, let me say I don't come down here to be political correct. I come down here to be correct and use common sense. Every week, someone come down here from the black and minority community asking for something to this chamber, send to you guys up on the dais what should be a given, not to ask. It should be amplified to every citizen of the city of Tampa. We all are taxpayers in Hillsborough County. We elected you guys to move us forward as a city, all of us together to represent all of us, not a group of people. I must say you guys are letting us down in the city of Tampa as citizens, electing you to move us forward as one. Y'all speak a good speak when you're out asking for our vote, but when it's time for y'all to stand and move and action and stand behind a person, you're a no-show. Let you know, action speak louder than words. We elect you guys to do business on behalf of the citizens of Tampa. We demand our profit off our taxes and all that. Again, like the lady spoke prior, we need our streets, lights, we need sidewalks, we need the parks and recreation up, biking, running, to give the kids something to do in the community. Says stand on the street corner, stand on the side, and you send the police to harass them because they have nowhere to go and no parks to attend. We also believe that you're leaving the kids behind in the community. Again, that's very important, is the police are to serve and protect, not to harass and harass. So we need a check and balance. I was in here last Thursday. We're run by a strong mayor system, I heard. Well, we'll let you guys, we need to get a better check and balance on the mayor system besides a budget, because common sense overrules any strong mayor system. We need to do the right thing, not asking for the right thing to be done, just common sense to do what need to be done appropriate for everybody to feel that they're welcome and wanted in this city. We are growing at a fast pace. My neighborhoods are disappearing with none of us around to see the beauty of the grove. We're paying the taxes for the growth of this community. We need to enjoy it as well. We know that legislation was made prior to the Newark Youth Council members on here that was put on the books racially motivated for a certain group of people in certain areas. We demand that you get a group together, a board, to overlook these legislators and laws that were put into effect just minority and black areas. Also, you guys sit up there and everyone come up here
and voice their opinion, how they feel. I wish you guys had the same enthusiasm as you come out when you come out for the votes. We are citizens. This is here for us to use it. All we're doing is expressing ourselves. We ask and demand that you show a little more courtesy towards us and respect that we give y'all guys.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good morning. I'm LaFaye Thomas from CDC of Tampa. Good morning to the panel and to all the guests that was invited. I just want to request for additional support for the programs that we offer at CDC of Tampa. We offer youth programs, youth leadership, workforce development, real estate, and first-time home buyers. When I was driving here, I had a whole idea of what I was going to say. And then when I got here, God had another thing for me to talk about. I was that teen parent, that single parent with my mom. She didn't have a 2-gen lifestyle. She worked really hard. She didn't have a ways to save. With CDC of Tampa, not only helping our youth going to college, post-secondary education, employability skills, we also help the families with first-time home buyer financial counseling, teaching them how to save and how to invest. Everyone pays tithes. I learned with CDC of Tampa how to pay myself. So we want to continue to keep the funding throughout the fiscal year 2020 for our youth and their family with a 2-gen approach, because we all know we're a stable environment for youth. They fundamentally do well academically, and then the parents don't have to worry about the idle time that the child may have while they're not being in a program. We meet the parents halfway. We meet the parents at home in the evening because some of them don't have transportation for case management. We meet the youth in school during the day where we know that's where they should be and offer those incentives. For my request today is, I know you have parks, I know you have recreations, I know you have all YMCAs and all these other things going on, but we have a holistic approach when it comes to 2-generational development, and I am requesting that we continue to support what CDC of Tampa has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next, please, if anyone.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Few. I live at 4506 North 29th Street, Tampa, Florida. That is in East Tampa. And I want to piggyback on what Mrs. Tate has already said. I started my association. I'm the president of College Hill Belmont Heights Association Crime Watch, and we started this endeavor back in August the 16th of 16, the year 2016, to get either a crosswalk light at 26 and Martin Luther King, or a light that controls, or a flashing light that controls the traffic. And we ask that you put something in place to slow down the traffic at that location. We have been going backwards and forth with the FDOT. They promised that it might be 2021 or 2022 because they had to do a study. I did my own study, and there are 6 schools in that area. There is Belmont Heights Estates. There are 7 churches, or maybe 8. And there are businesses in that area, and we deserve a safe crossing place at 26 and Martin Luther King. Please give this consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Goods.
Ms. Few,
Yes.
Ms. Few, come back, please. Thank you for the work you and Ms. Fran Tate are doing for the East Tampa. I tell you, it's a blessing to have you two. I've been to your meetings. I understand the fights you fight. I was glad to attend that meeting last week in reference to that.
Thank you for coming.
State Representative Diana Hart saw me the other day. She got a call, and apparently she's working on another back end in reference to our crisis right there at that intersection, and she's getting another little push on that, so hopefully something will come a little further. But I heard you mention the other day that that our department is going to try to get some type of mutual aid agreement with FDOT to try to get that project moved up, if I'm not correct.
Right.
If I stand corrected.
Right.
Are we still working on that end?
They still said it might be 2021 or 2022. And we were not happy with that. The residents that was at the meeting stated that from 2016, I mean, how long does it take to put something in place
I understand.
and
I understand
protect
that,
our
Ms. Field.
children and residents of that area?
Gentlemen, I don't know if you know what she's talking about. That's the new C. Blythe Andrews Library that has been resurrected there. It's always been a high-volume street with all those elementary. I don't know why we've never even had a crossing guard. I worked that as a beat cop there. We've never even had a crossing guard there. I don't understand because we have elementary schools in that area. And we've complained about that area for a long, long time. The volume is going to increase. It's a new library, a beautiful place, 2 stories now. Again, Representative Hart says she's working on something on the back end to try to get that pushed. Hopefully, she can work with our department and FDOT to try to get that date moved up a little bit with that mutual aid agreement that we're talking about. But I am on that, and I'm going to make this council aware of that so they can go out and drive by, see what we're talking about, to see if we want to see what we can do to put a push. But you're absolutely correct. We've got to do something about that intersection. I thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councilman Gould.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here for, oh, go ahead, ma'am. And before you speak, ma'am, just so we can know, is anyone else here for public comment today who hasn't spoken? Okay, 2 more. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Noreen Copeland Miller, and I live at 1911 East Chelsea Street. And I'm here today as a concerned citizen concerned about my community. And we know where our focus goes, energy flows. Lately in my community, and I'm going to have some my own issues, and I've tried to stand back and just listen. Again, when I say where focus goes, energy flows. And it's a lot of negative energy flowing right now because all these proclaimed leaders over in East Seminole Heights, North Seminole Heights, East Tampa, whatever area you want to call that community right now. I've been in that community over 30 years. I didn't show up 6 years ago. I've been in Tampa 60-some years, where I'm born and raised, a Tampanian. I have lived this history with everybody's reading about or trying to say they're such experts in. But I want, if you're going to represent me, be respectful in our communities, engage our citizens, respect their opinions. It's okay to disagree. We should not be on social media tearing each other apart. It's embarrassing, it's disgraceful. Leaders do not do that. Lead, everybody have a right to express their opinion. And as a Tampanian, I'm embarrassed to be represented by and I'm not calling out any names I don't need to, but we got to do better. We got to respect each other. We got to engage each other. We got to be proud of our community, proud of our representatives. And right now, I'm not there because I know, again, where focus goes, energy flows. We stay focused on affordable housing. Stay focused on getting jobs. Stay focused. We got a real big problem with the cemetery stuff. Stay focused on that. Because when I look in and see names of my ancestors listed, I'm concerned. Because I want to know what's on their death certificate. And they're not common names. But we're Tampanians. I am. I didn't relocate here, but I got concerns, serious concerns. So let's represent, stay focused, put that energy where it needs to be on our community, not tearing each other apart in this city. Thank you very much. And again, City Councilman, thank you all for your time you're doing. And I know you're out there in the community, and I respect that. And I do want to say to my representatives, thank you for all that you do, Councilman Goose. And I know you're a community person and respectful. So, and I know that you'll take charge of this incident. And all of you, thank you for all that you're doing. Take care.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and council members. My name is Giselle Johnson, and I am a homeowner of 3816 West Wisconsin. I'm not real sure what the proper proceedings of this chamber is, so you'll have to tell me if I need to wait for the second reading of the vacation of the alleyway behind my home.
Yes, ma'am. That's on the agenda today, so you have to wait for public comments until that comes up.
That's not a problem. I'll find myself another seat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Next, sir.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Sam Donato. Lived here in Tampa for 18 years. And I want to address handicap parking. Oh, sure. Thank you so much. It's very nice of you. So overall, I feel like, I don't want to complain. I feel like Tampa does a really good job as far as handicapped people. But I've recently started working downtown Tampa, and I'm parking on-site street parking. And what I found is that there is an app that you can use, and I can pay for parking there, or I can go to a kiosk and get 4 hours of free parking. So what that means is that I go from 9 to 1, and then I have to go back out there, go to the kiosk, move my car to another spot, then go to the kiosk again, get another 4 hours, and then at 5 o'clock, move the car, and then get another hour done. So that's between 9 and 6. I'm going out to my car 2 other times, whether it's in the rain or not. What's happening is that I'm in meetings or whatever it may be, I'm not able to go out there and I'm getting ticketed. So my question to you is, as a handicapped person with a license plate, I don't use a placard like everybody else, and I've given my concern to the people at the parking when I pay my tickets. I've received 5 tickets so far because I'm not able to go out there and issue a ticket at the kiosk. So I'm wondering if there was a way that we could have a solution. So I'm not asking for handicap spots. If I had a handicap spot, I could go park there and then park there all day, but I don't want to incur that. That would take away ordinary spots. I think if there's a possible, we could consider just not ticketing handicap licensed cars. So if I have a license plate with a handicap license, would I be able to, I'm asking if we could maybe consider that we not ticket handicap cars on parking in the city of Tampa. Does anybody have any
Councilman Dingfelder in the time.
Sir, I think you bring up a really good point. We try and be knowledgeable on a lot of topics. We're obviously not experts on everything, and personally, I wasn't aware of that situation. I think what I'd like to do with Mr. Chair's indulgence is to ask our parking department to come address that issue with us at a future date, probably about a month from now.
Okay.
And see what the parking director has to say about that as an idea. It sounds like a reasonable idea, but he might have some other input.
Absolutely. I think there's some history. I think what was happening was that people are using the play cards, and I see that people are using their grandmothers or their parents or whatever, so they use it and they park where they shouldn't be parking in handicapped spots. So I think what was happened as far as history, people were using it and abusing it. So they were using those handicap they weren't getting tickets. They were able to park there all day. So what they did was they changed it to just 4 hours. But that 4 hours actually isn't that very convenient. So you could there's multiple options if I'm open to work with you or this parking committee to work with that, come up with a solution that we could come up with easily if you would like.
Yeah, parking director is not under our quote control in regard to he answers to the mayor, but he will come talk to us about this if that's your desire, and you could come back that day.
I'd like to do anything possible to make a change, absolutely, sir.
Okay. Yeah, if Mr. Chairman wants to entertain a motion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shelby, can you help me with a date?
Date, 30
perhaps
days.
about a month from now, just for
we
a staff report and.
Would August 1st be acceptable? We
That's
could,
okay.
the next regular meeting actually is July 18th, which is quite your first meeting back from your break.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, sir.
That's a very
August
full
1st.
meeting.
I'll move to bring that issue back August 1st.
Under staff reports?
Under staff report.
So August 1st?
Yes, sir. It's 9 a.m. here.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
The question is, at what point do you want it as part of the agenda? Did you want it at 9 a.m. or under staff reports?
Oh, under staff reports.
Thank you.
Okay.
So it might not,
Question, if the gentleman's gonna be here
Yeah.
August first, maybe we can move it up to number one, or whenever he arrives, we can stop, that way he can go to work.
Thank you
I
so much.
understand the problem. Thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, it'd probably have to be number 2 before, after the mayor. So, yes, so it would probably go, the mayor's going to be making her budget presentation, and then after that, we can hear this issue.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, thank you.
that'd be fine. That's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second? And Mr. Torito, did you?
No, I was
Oh,
I was taking the microphone from the gentleman.
Very helpful, thank you, sir. I'm sorry, who seconded that? Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Maniscalco, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, sir. So return here, if you would, please, August 1st, and we'll have that issue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here for public comment? Okay, being none, we move to see if there's any requests by the public for reconsideration of legislative matters. Being none, we move to the consent agenda, and I would like to, before, if we may, because I see Mr. Dow here, we had a couple items pulled, number 10, 11, 30, and 35, and 30 and 35, Councilman Dingfelder, is that for... You want to deal with those first, sir?
Sure, and I'll eliminate number 11. I see Ms. Sanchez, Sandy Sanchez here from the Armory Gardens Civic Association. The only reason I pulled number 11 was actually a good thing. I wanted to congratulate and thank Sandy and Armory Gardens Civic Association for their contribution of $7,700. I wasn't sure exactly how to do that if it was on consent, but that was my only purpose of doing number 11. I see she's here. Mr. Chairman wants to bring her up for a second to talk about it. That's your prerogative, but thank you to Armory Gardens and Sandy for helping us with Vila Brothers Park and the improvements we're making there.
Thank you, sir. And Councilman Goods, did you have anything, sir?
Yes, sir. I see Mr. Dow is here. I'd like him to speak on number 13, because I think council is going to be very interested in what they have. When I looked into this, we met at his office, and I just was glad to see this type of project.
Okay, are you pulling that?
Yeah, we can pull it. I want to talk about that.
Okay, and again, and as you know, I mean, this is fine, but usually we give staff 24 hours notice when Mr. Dow's here.
Right,
It's
since
of
he was
no
here, that's
consequences,
what- right,
so
since he
that's
was here.
fine. And so, Mr. Dingfelder, I just want to make sure, as it applies to item 11, and then, but you're still pulling 10, 30, and 35, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and is anybody here for 10, 30, and 35? Okay, so you do, okay. Let's go ahead and have the first pulled items, and then we'll get to Mr. Dial, if that's okay. So let's begin. Go ahead, sir. Oh, and you know what? And I apologize. I do want to bring up Sandy. If you want to come up just for 1 second, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're here, and y'all have done so much work, and just to publicly recognize you and your association for all you've done for the Villa Brothers Park, and you know that's an item that we passed in 2017, and I was glad to see that passed. That's a park that really not just meets the needs of people, but puts forth our values in honoring a great Tampa family that has given so much, and you know, and we always see you there doing all that work. So I just wanted to second what Councilman Dingfelder said, and just thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Well, you know, it's a community effort. It's a community effort, but we still have work to be done. So with the budget coming up, please do not forget the Villa Brothers Park. Thank you again.
Thank you, ma'am, for all your work. We're in your debt. I mean that. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Chuck Weber, Water Department Director. I'm here to address any questions regarding item 30. It's the fourth amendment to the agreement with Corolla Engineering for the Tampa Augmentation Project. The amendment consists primarily of public outreach efforts and some modeling to help answer some questions that have been raised regarding the project as far as water quality.
Okay. Councilman Dingfelder, sir.
Yes, sir. Had lengthy conversations with the various staff, including Mr. Baird and Chuck, on this item. So this is about TAP, the Tampa Augmentation Project. It's a project, Brad just reminded me, city's been looking at perhaps back to the 1970s. And we've spent a lot of money, and there's been a lot of discussion over the decades about this, and Tampa Bay Water's been involved, et cetera, and Charlie can give us much more history than I would ever have on this. However, when I talked to Brad yesterday, our discussion was a lot of this next $600,000 has to do with public communication, to go out into the public and talk to the public and explain to them what the project is and get the public's input, et cetera. I have two concerns. Number one, Mr. Carlson's not here. He's, I guess, traveling on business, but I know this issue is very important to him. He's expressed that several occasions over the last couple of months that we've been here, and so I would be hesitant for us to move forward with an additional $600,000 without him here. It's like I said, this has been going on decades, and I've asked staff if they would be okay with a month delay until Mr. Carlson comes back. And the second part is on Exhibit A4 in your backup. In regard to the outreach, it says, stakeholder involvement and public outreach. The engineer will develop and implement strategies that will yield an in-depth understanding of TAP among key stakeholders, the general public, as well as position TAP as the best alternative for a new drinking water supply for the city of Tampa. Well, my concern on that is, and Bill raised this, I think, as related to this issue or a different issue in regard to public involvement, is if you go out and you're looking for public involvement, but you've got a preordained solution, which is what I just read to you, quote, as well as position TAP as the best alternative for a new drinking water. Well, there are 4 alternatives, okay, and we don't need to get into it today because we don't have time, but there are 4 alternatives. The city administration, I think, has concluded that TAP is the best. The community has not made that conclusion, and this council, to my knowledge, has not made that conclusion. So with all of that said, I'm not looking to kill it. I'm not looking to deny the $600,000. I'm not looking to do that. But what I am looking to do is delay this for 1 month until August 1st, regular meeting, bring it back on the agenda in any way, shape, or form. Staff might want to modify this exhibit to perhaps be a little more neutral in regard to public participation, and then maybe everybody will think it's fine. But in the meantime, that's my request to council. That's my explanation. I asked if there's any urgency. Like I said, this has been going on decades. I don't see another month as being a problem.
I'll second that.
So that's my motion to defer it until August 1st.
Did you want a staff report at the time, or did you want it to appear again as it does now on the consent docket?
I'd just defer the item.
As unfinished business?
Sure.
And before I go on that with the administration, I know Councilman Dingfelder inquired on this. I just want to publicly do so. Would this proposed delay in any way prejudice plans, be any sort of a burdensome roadblock, et cetera? In other words, would it be a reasonable extension that wouldn't prejudice any plans in the immediate public interest?
Well, we have, we had originally planned on beginning the public outreach half a year ago. And I think that is part of the issue in that there are a lot of questions that have already been asked and issues that need to be addressed from the League of Women Voters, the Sierra Club, Tampa Bay Water. They've asked a lot of questions, and we've developed a plan to address every one of those questions, and we want to do it in a timely manner. We want to start engaging the public now. So while, a month delay, yes, in a way, it will inhibit our ability to answer those questions sooner. In the month that's following here, staff believes that TAP is the right project because we have already evaluated a lot of other alternatives over the decades. And in the next month, we are going to dust those off, pull them out, and make sure that they're apples to apples, and be able to show the public and all the stakeholders why we believe it's the best alternative. So we think now's the time to start engaging the public so that they can start becoming aware of it. So when we present these options and present these alternatives, they'll understand the dialogue better. So staff would like to move forward at this point.
Councilman Goods.
I guess you just found that little clause there, John. I mean, I have to say bravo to you. You know, I always talk about stakeholders. When you talked about certain clubs and organizations, tell me how you're going to market to everybody, because you mentioned a few names. So how do we market to everybody? Because I know a lot of times people come to my district and they never bring the marketing tools in my district, but we're always hit the heaviest. So tell me how we're marketing, because that's a big thing for me with this administration, how we're marketing to the people when we're asking for things.
That's exactly what this amendment and extra work is going to allow us to do, to start reaching out to a larger group of people, to include everybody in the discussion. So part of the plan is to engage at the community level and have regular meetings. I believe the amendment includes up to 24 different meetings over the next 12 months at community events, neighborhood associations. So the intent is to engage everyone, not just a few organizations. We've developed a large list of people that we need to talk to, including all communities and as many stakeholders as we can find. So if we move forward with this amendment, we'll be able to start engaging all those communities.
Anyone else?
Councilman
Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I know some of this. I'm not an expert. No one is. But have you been, how many of us been to Atlanta? How many of us been to Washington? How many of us been to Southern California? They all drink this water. So if you've been there, somehow the possibilities are you at least tasted it and tell me what the difference was. This water will be not one living microbe in the production and the finalization of this water. However, that's not to say that there's not another plan. I don't know of 4 plants. I don't know where the water's coming from. Certainly additional water is not coming from the Hillsborough River. It's not coming from the wells. It's not coming from the AR saw wells that we have, because we did that 20 years ago. And we pull water out from those wells in January, February, March, and April to meet our demand of about 83 million gallons a day. Water, I said some time ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, would be as expensive as oil. Why did I say that? It's the same water you've been drinking for 300 million years. However, population wasn't here 300 million years ago. The scarcity of water has caused this area and areas throughout. There's wars about water. There's been wars in the United States between certain states, and I'm not going to mention them because there's still litigation, I think. But one starts with a C, the other starts with a K. And those wars have been going on for over 100 years. There was water wars here between Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough. We were never involved as a city. We got in because we had a seat at the table back in 1998. So, you know, these contracts are what they are, but I don't know of where the 4 different waters are going to come from. Certainly, unless you buy it from somewhere else, you're not going to get it. Yes, at rainy season, see, water is very different. When you need it, you don't have it. When you don't need it, you have it. You don't need it during the month of July, August, and September, maybe June. Why? Because it rains a lot. So you don't have to buy any water. But other months, February, March, April, and May, guess what? It's the other way around. You have a high water consumption because it's spring, everybody wants to plant something and use it. And guess what happens? You need more water. And on the other side, you can't produce it because you don't have it. So when you look at the summer months, sure, you water your lawn, but not as often because it rains every other day, sometimes 3 and 4 times a day. So therefore, you need it and you have it, but you don't need to produce it because nature's giving it to you. So it's a very complex issue. The gentleman that knows a lot is the gentleman right there in the podium. I call him Kansas because that's where he comes from. And Brad Baird and others that I have to rely on as a private citizen. I might be part of the face of water, but I'm not the brains behind water. I have to deal that to the individuals that deal, the engineers, not only here, but the engineers that we contract to do that for us. And these are things that are very important. And the later we go, the more it's going to cost. And if you think it's easy, you can go sit at Tampa Bay Water and I'll take a rest. I need one. Anybody who wants a job, I'll give it to you. But it's not mine to give away. It's the mayor's. If you try to convince somebody that you're the second largest producer of water in the whole region, aside from Tampa Bay Water, it's very difficult. I don't know if they think that we won their baseball team. I don't want anybody's damn baseball team. First of all, you see the budget today. You tell me where you're going to get the millions of dollars to give away free to people who already have more millions than what they need. Water is going to become more expensive every year because we have only 2 seasons, summer and Christmas here, and that's why the snowbirds come here. That's why people move here. They don't move here because we're in office. I would say 60% of the people that voted for us never even saw us. Don't even know us. But we got elected. And we have a duty to perform. And I'm going to perform that duty by voting yes. Thank you.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Miranda, and I do appreciate your history on this and your service at Tampa Bay Water, which is long and hard. Mr. Baird, could I ask you to come up? Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Weber. I had a conversation with Mr. Baird yesterday. Mr. Weber wasn't present, but Brad, you mentioned to me four alternatives, that this is one of 4 alternatives that we've been exploring for quite a while.
Yes, so Brad Baird, Public Works Administrator. So we...
I was just wondering if you could tell council, number 1, what the 4 alternatives are, and number 2, is council, and I'll get to you in one sec, Brad. Council, this is an amazingly complex and important issue. And I'm not saying that I haven't decided where I'm at on it. Many years ago, I had expressed grave concern about this, but that was a long time ago, and maybe technology's changed, and et cetera. So I haven't made up my mind on it. But what I do know is that I don't know, okay, and that we haven't been briefed. There's 4 new members here. We haven't had this in workshop. There's biological issues. There's biologicals in this wastewater. There's pharmaceuticals in this wastewater. There's environmental issues when we pump it down into the karst, into the limestone. So there's all these issues, and I think that before we spend an additional $600,000+, which is a lot of money, that we should, at a minimum, we should have a workshop in this body, in this room, and this is slightly different than where I was going a minute ago, but we should have a workshop and let staff spend an hour or 2 and give us all this information that's been accumulating for 20 or 30 years. And then the community, the League of Women Voters, the Sierra Club, Tampa Bay Water, anybody else who has issues or concerns, or whoever wants to talk on it can come talk to us, just like they did on affordable housing the other day, and we can get the full picture. Because right now, with all due respect to my friend Brad Baird, I'm only getting part of the picture, which is the part that the water department wants to share with us. And I'm not saying I respect Brad and I respect the water department tremendously, so I'm not questioning the veracity of that, but there's always many sides to a story. So anyway, Brad, I asked you a question about the 4 alternatives.
Okay, so we have been asked by numerous people to look back over the years and compare alternatives that have been looked at over the last few decades, and in an apples-to-apples comparison to determine what the cost would be for those old alternatives, what the benefits would be. So it's basically a cost-benefit analysis of these 4 alternatives. 1 would be the Tampa Augmentation Project. 2 would be to buy water from Tampa Bay Water, which would include further treatment as well, which we don't get right now. 3 would be to update the master plan that was done in 2009 to expand the South Tampa Area Reclaim Project and to send the water north and develop a reclaimed turf irrigation system up in New Tampa, and then to additionally sell water to Hillsborough and Pasco counties. That is a plan that we looked at again 10 years ago to expand that out. At the time, it was $341 million, so that would all have to be updated. And then the fourth plan, which we've looked at in the past, is to build a full advanced treatment plant that would be a membrane plant, reverse osmosis, ultrafiltration, and other treatment processes to take the reclaimed water all the way to drinking water and then deliver it directly to the system. So those are plans that have been looked at before, and so we need to really just update those numbers, put them on a apples to apples basis, so those four alternatives can be compared cost wise and benefit wise.
Okay.
Anything further?
And I'll just follow up. And thank you, Brad. You're always very forthcoming to me and to this council, and I appreciate it. So there are alternatives. There's four alternatives. They have a lot of technical details with them. They have a lot of financial issues associated with it. The four of us have been here for 2 months, and we haven't, that was a great explanation that took 5 minutes. This is huge because it's $600,000 now, but who knows, how big it could be ultimately. It's more than $100 million, I'm sure.
Sure.
And so, to me, it's the cart before the horse, and I'm not comfortable because if you vote for this today, you're voting for this provision I just read, because it's included as part of the backup, and it basically says that the policy of this council is that the tap is the best alternative, quote unquote. That's what you're voting for today, and I'm not ready to go there. I'm not ready to go there. So I guess I have a motion and a second to, at a minimum, defer this for an additional month until Mr. Carlson comes back. But frankly, I think the more prudent thing, and I'll accept it if I see anybody indicating they want to go there, but I'd like us to have a full-blown workshop on this issue with lots of public involvement right here, and then we can move forward with the rest of the public involvement for $600,000. So should I pull my own motion and substitute it? Am I allowed to do that?
You're amending your motion, and I guess the second.
I guess I have to wait and see if the second is there.
If the second, it was seconded, I believe, is the second to accept your amendment.
Is this to take it, not just to bring it back in 30 days, but to bring it to a full workshop?
Yeah, instead of, I'll strike the 30 days and I'll amend my motion to bring it back into the August workshop, which is August 27th, I think.
Is there a workshop, August?
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah, 29th.
29th.
This 29th of August.
Yeah, I'll second that, and I'll reserve my comments for then. I have my thoughts on this whole project and whatnot, so I'm happy to second that for a workshop at the end of August.
Okay, I know Councilman Miranda wanted to speak.
Let me just say this. The four objectives of new water is essence objective of one water being distributed to different areas for different causes. So there's not four new water supplies, it's the only water supply.
That's
Can
correct.
you tell me any of the new water supply that the city of Tampa can get without tap or whatever you want to call it? Are you
No.
going to dig more wells?
No, sir.
Can you dig more wells? Are you
No,
going to
sir.
get more rainfall? You don't know, neither do I. Are you going to buy more water? The answer is yes. At what cost? Much higher. So let's play
right.
politics or let's play the facts. And the facts are that if this goes on, I'm going to resign from Tampa Bay Water, and one of the six of you can represent the mayor, or the mayor can represent the mayor. Because I'm tired of delays. Workshop is fine. Let this go on. You can have 1,000,000 workshop. By the way, as you well know, and maybe you don't know, Chuck, but for years, what did I do with 4 bottles of water?
Went around and showed the public what they were and let them pick which one came from the plant, which one came from the
Exactly
river.
right. I took water from the river. I took water from the intake at the valve of the augmented project. I took water from finished
Yes, sir.
water and water for finished water from the diesel plant. And I explained to maybe 10 different clubs, maybe 800, 1,000 people, I don't know. And guess what? They never chose the right water, the one that they drink. The one that they drink looks like swamp water. Because it's river water. And let me tell you about the river. Things die at the river. Fish are killed at the river. They make love in the river, and they do number 2 in the river. Let me talk about the desal plant, about red tide. Doesn't happen here, does it? Of course not. It happens over there. Let me talk about bacteria. When they have the bacteria high that you can't even get in the water, what do you think the desal plant takes in? You mean they can tell the difference between red tide and this tide and the other tide? If you need it, if you have to pump it, then you think that they're going to give you something you can't drink? Of course not. Let me tell you how difficult it is to run a desal plant. I don't know, but at the end, I don't have any hair to prove it, but those of you that have hair, they got to squeeze 1/16 of the size of your hair and put water through it as one of the filtration systems. And that's real easy. I wouldn't. You have to do what these gentlemen and these people that are experts in water understand. No one here knows about water other than these two and many others, engineers that deal solely with this. They were trained for this. They live for this. David Tippin, forget your name, Kansas, but Kansas, and he used to be number 1 in the water department. Now I just call him number 2. So it's just something that has to be done. Whether I like it or not, if you keep stalling this, volunteer, give me a volunteer who wants to serve at Tampa Bay Water, and I'll try to get you appointed. Raise your hand. I'll appoint you, but I don't have the right. You want it, I resign, it's yours. Go see the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments from council? Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay. What are the votes? I don't.
Roll call, please.
Yeah.
Aye.
No.
No. No.
We have a time, Mr. Shelby.
Rule 4A, Council, 4 votes are required to affect official action, and therefore I believe, I don't have that vote sitting right in front of me, but, yes. If a motion to approve, this is Rule 4C, if a motion to approve, deny, or continue an ordinance or a resolution of a legislative matter fails to receive at least 4 votes, either in support or in opposition, it shall automatically be brought before the council at the next regular meeting as unfinished business. Now, council, this was a motion to continue it and move it to a workshop date.
And we also have additional issues. I believe Councilman Dingfelder, this is your committee. Yeah, so that's a complicating issue. So in other words, given the fact that we apparently don't have the votes to move this forward, is our only coming next council?
It comes back on July 18th.
Okay. Okay.
Pardon? I have not heard otherwise personally.
Yeah, I think
We'll call them. But, okay, so we'll.
If for whatever reason council doesn't want to hear it on July 18th, we can always take whatever action council chooses in its power.
And
But
let me
that's what
say,
the rules call it,
and let me say, if
for.
I may, that whenever it comes to, and strike that, Councilman Dingfelder, you were moving for August 27th, correct, for a workshop? Okay, forget it, because I know.
August 29th to be precise, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, because I know July and early August, we are very slammed. So I guess our option is then to have this effectively pulled by operation of not having 4 votes, and it will be dealt with at the next council meeting.
Yes, sir, that's your rules. As it relates to item 30, yes.
Yes. Mhm. Okay. And Councilman Dingfelder, I believe we have next 35, am I correct? Okay, 10.
May I explain
And
35?
Councilman-
That's my committee.
Oh, yes, sir.
What happened here, this is a law firm of Thompson, Sizemore, Gonzalez, and Herring, who used to
That's
do all of our
30.
work regarding anything that had to do with some type of civil service or plans that have to be very technical work of people that may or may not get fired and things of that nature regarding the public's money. And they formed, and they got taken over. They agreed to be formed and merged with Gray Robinson Law Firm. Their charge is $150 an hour plus $45 for any other individuals that might be somebody in the office who's an aide to the lawyer or somebody who does the research for a lawyer. and the total contract remaining is $60,000. That's what that is.
And
that's
Councilmember
item
Reed.
35, just for clarification.
Yeah. Mhm. And sir, did
35,
you-
that's number 35, right? My committee, and I should be able to understand and talk about it.
Yes.
Any questions on that?
Yes, sir.
Any questions on item 35? Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Miranda. No, I mean, I'm, as an attorney, been around quite a while. I'm very familiar with Thompson, Sizemore, Gonzalez, and specifically with Tom Gonzalez, who's an amazing attorney, one of the finest, and I believe a former city attorney, if I'm not mistaken. And Gray Robinson is a great law firm, and it looks like they're merging. And Mr. Gonzalez and his firm are looking to take that contract into Gray Robinson, which is standard protocol. My concern is this, and it's a little bit obtuse. It's come to my attention, and I know Mr. Torito is going to be jumping up any second, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say without mentioning any names. But it's come to my attention that and Mr. Gonzalez helps us with these union arbitrations and that sort of thing, and he goes to court for us as related to employment matters. Mr. Miranda, am I correct on that?
You're asking me?
Yeah,
You're the one that put it, you should know.
I'm asking you to confirm that's my understanding Mr. Gonzalez does in this contract.
Mr. Gonzalez has been doing this for some period of time with the city, as I recall.
And he does the labor and employment stuff.
As I recall, I stated that he does technical work, and I mentioned that earlier when I spoke.
Right. So anyway, so it come to my attention that there's a firefighter who had an issue, went through the proper grievance thing. They had a hearing and in front of an administrative hearing officer, and the city lost. Then the city took it to court, okay, including Mr. Gonzalez, and then the city lost in court. Okay, now instead of looking at what, and each time this costs a lot of money, okay, in terms of back pay and in terms of legal fees. And you might even have to pay the attorneys, or the firefighters' legal fees, I'm not even sure. But anyway, so we lost at the hearing, we lost in court, and then apparently instead of just licking our wounds and reinstating or whatever, and I don't get into the details because that's not my place, but instead of doing that, apparently they have taken the firefighter on the same issues and demoted him and that sort of thing. And so now we start back over again. I think it's potentially contemptible to what the judge ordered from what I read. But I'm not going to play a lawyer. I'm just going to play a councilman who has concern about that. And the only reason I pulled this contract and referencing Mr. Gonzalez is he's part of that hearing process. And it all concerns me greatly. With that said, I will move item 35, okay, or allow Mr. Miranda to move item 35, and I'll second his motion to continue to retain Mr. Gonzalez and his law firm. But I just wanted to put that on the record that I don't understand what the city is doing. I don't know why we are so hyper aggressive on that sort of thing, where we would stand in the face of the hearing officer's ruling and subsequently the court's ruling, the Circuit Court of Hillsborough County's ruling, and continue to, not treat this firefighter appropriately. So anyway, that's it. That's why I pulled that item, because I couldn't figure out any other way to bring up this important issue.
Councilman Miranda.
Two things. First of all, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a judge, and I don't practice to be an attorney. However, no attorney takes a case unless who? Your client tells you to do it. No attorney appeals a case unless, you know what? Your client tells you to appeal your case. Even if you try to convince your client, it is your client's responsibility, not the attorney's, to say appeal it or not to appeal it. And I'm not with Tom Gonzalez. I know who he is. I don't socialize with him. I don't even know. I've never had lunch, breakfast, or dinner with him. However, if I knew this way ahead of time that it was him, then why wait till he merges? Go fire him then. Not now. That's what you want. That's what you're trying to do. I don't know that firm. Do I know people in law office? A lot of them. But I'm just here to say that if this is the case, then we should have fired him a long time ago. But to fire an individual had to be that his client, who was who? The city of Tampa, is the one that asked him to appeal the case. He didn't do it on his own volition. He can't say, here, I'm going to appeal it. They're going to say, whoa, whoa, we don't want to do that. We're already lost. I believe that's how it works. So who should I fire? The firm or the city? Thank you.
And if Councilman Goods.
Let me make sure I get an understanding here, because I've seen some of this work before. So my understanding is we've lost twice.
And if I may, Councilman Goods, but before we go in there, let me just say something, that we are going in a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole. This is an issue that involves a contract with a law firm that happens to represent the interests of and the wishes of the city of Tampa. I'm an attorney. I've handled God knows how many cases throughout my life, and there's been a lot of cases where my clients tell me to do something, and I may not agree with that. To use this forum and the consent agenda to talk about a particular case involving a firefighter is, I just think, something that is, in my opinion, improper. I mean, if you wish to comment on it, but I mean, this is something that is, and wait, Mr. Shelby, and this is something that is potentially in litigation, et cetera, and to use the contract of the handling attorney, I just think we're playing with fire. But if you wish to comment, sir.
I'm not looking at this as a contract. I'm just looking at, if we're playing ball, and we've got 2 strikes already, we're gonna keep paying people. I mean,
If I can, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead,
Just to speak to this before you have any further discussion. First of all, this may, and I see Mr. Trito up there, I'll defer to him after I just read council's rules. Beside the fact that this could very well involve a collective bargaining agreement, council's rules 4J said council should avoid any discussion of matters at a public meeting where the city is or likely to be a party in litigation without the concurrence of council. Mr. Torito?
Mr. Torito. I think we're going down a rabbit hole here. This is South Torito Legal Department. Whether this happened or not, I'm not going to discuss it here. I don't, this is an issue that involves the administration. It doesn't involve the law firm. Whatever way they're going on this thing, I hadn't heard this story. I'm not saying anybody's giving me false information. We're getting one side of something. Obviously, what you're hearing from is one side. You haven't heard both sides, and this is not the proper forum to be discussing that.
And Councilman Dingfeld.
Thank you. And one last comment, and I don't want to be misconstrued, Mr. Miranda. I said I would second your motion to pass 35 and to continue to use Mr. Gonzalez.
Oh, sure.
That's what I said, and that's what I will do. However, okay, and I'm not getting into the details. I didn't mention the firefighter's name. I didn't mention the case number or anything else, but I know it exists out there, and I'm pretty darn confident that the 2 events that I made reference to happened. And it is the city's money, and it is the people's money, okay? And if we keep throwing good money after bad to do this, and the only other thing I would comment, Mr. Miranda, because it sounded like your comment was directed toward me a little bit, well, let me just say, the client has changed slightly, okay? Because this litigation has been going on for more than a year, okay? And the client, quote unquote, and I'll say the administration, we have a new mayor, okay, has changed, as has this council, has changed. And so I just want to make sure that there's plenty of good communication between Mr. Gonzalez and the mayor and Mr. Torito and whoever else needs to be involved in this on the legal side to make sure that it's closely monitored. And in terms of using this item to get there, so be it. That's the only way I could figure out to get there. But I think it's important. Okay, with that, I'm glad to second Mr. Miranda's motion and move on.
And we'll move them all collectively once. I actually probably should have moved the non-objected twos first. Okay, that being said, do we have any other items, Mr. Dingfeld?
It looks like item 10.
Okay, item 10.
And specifically, I'm asking Mr. Dial from Parks and Rec because he seems to be the biggest user of this janitorial.
And then
Hey, Paul.
Yes, this is simply a request for additional funding for custodial at several sites throughout the city. It's divided into 4 different areas of custodial with different contractors, north, south, east, west, and it's the request for the additional funding to complete the year. We had new facilities come online. We had additional services required because of things such as stay and play and the popularity of those areas as well. So there was some shifting of responsibility, and with that, we're requesting those funds.
Right. Councilman Dingfeld.
Yes, sir. And the reason I pulled it was in a very general sense, because I'm aware that the last time I served 8 years ago, and prior to that, from 2003 to 2010, that many of these janitorial services in Parks and Rec were done with our own employees. And when I pulled the item 2 days ago, Paul and I have had a conversation. I had a conversation with Mr. Spearman. I've done my homework. And Paul, when you and I spoke, I think you indicated, I can't remember, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was your understanding that we've lost the X number of employees who used to do this type of work or positions over the last X number of years.
There were some positions, and again, I've been here less than 2 years, so I wasn't here for the history of this, but there were some vacant positions that instead of those being filled, it merged over to some contract cleaning that was provided. So that number did decrease the amount of employees with some dollars that then were transferred over to the contracting process. I would like to note, though, something that I don't think I communicated to you that's probably important there as well. I don't want to give the impression that all of our custodial is by contract, because we still have groups in our department, in Parks and Recreation, at several parks, that we still have some staff that do some custodial. We also, facilities under the logistics management department also has a crew of, I believe, 10 people to where they do some of this as well. So it's really a blend of some contracting, which you're seeing here, but there are some employees in some locations because of frequency and high traffic areas that we have our own employees because it makes sense in those cases.
Well, it's my understanding, this isn't just related to your department, it's my understanding that over the years, since when the recession started and after, that we've lost like 900 employees, people who do this type of thing, people who mow the city yards, the city parks now get mowed, by private vendors, et cetera. And what I'm asking, and I'm thrilled that the Chief of Staff is heading our way to address this in all sincerity, because it's a big picture issue that we've laid off, and you've been here most of the time, that we've either laid off or eliminated hundreds and hundreds of these positions. Now the city is, quote, in the black, headed into the black. We're on better footing. And all I'm suggesting is that we re-explore the cost-benefit analysis on using, and not just for Parks and Rec and not just janitorial services, across the board, because week in and week out, we're spending millions and millions of dollars using private vendors. And I don't know that anybody's done a comprehensive analysis recently of that. And it's not just dollars and cents either. As Paul and I discussed yesterday, sometimes when you have an employee at that park facility, that there's other hidden benefits to having that employee there. In other words, he or she might mop and clean for half the day, but maybe they do some light maintenance or light preventive maintenance, or some light repair work or that sort of thing, or who knows what else they might do. But if you have a contractor who's just there to, what do they say, mow and blow, you're not going to get those side benefits. So, Mr. Dennis, thank you.
Yes, Council, Dennis Rogero, Mayor's Chief of Staff, thank you. If memory serves, I believe during the economic downturn, we eliminated over 700 positions of a complement of approximately 4,000. So 15 to 20% of our workforce. Many of you remember it, many of you have heard about it. When it comes to, I think, when it comes to contractual services versus having employees do a particular function, I think there's a balance. Have we established the perfect balance? I don't know that. As you said, sir, I don't believe we've done a comprehensive review. And undoubtedly, there are both hard and soft benefits to having employees do the function here. We've got good contractors, we've got great contractors, but we've got fantastic employees. And I'm not just here saying that, we've worked with them. You know, many, if not most, I think, are here because they feel it's a calling, bettering themselves, bettering the community, bettering their neighbors, etc. So why do I say that? Absolutely. In a perfect world, we'd have more employees. And if I'm a betting man, as we get through the budget process, you will see requests for additional personnel. The difficulty, I think, or one of the many difficulties in having a tight-knit, well-trained, motivated family of employees is when you have to tell about 15 to 20% of them that they're not working here anymore. That's tough. Many of you remember it. I remember it. It was unpleasant, and it leaves a mark. So I think this organization, and I'm not trying to convey that it was just this organization, we all were and are still a part of a big club. We've been very sensitive about overextending ourselves from an employee perspective because, you know, it's not if, it's when the next economic downturn is going to happen. Those are the two questions, when and how bad. So there's a balance there. I don't have the perfect answer. We can absolutely do a study, especially as we go forward with large expenditures for contracts versus employees. But just trying to give you a history of what we've done. You know, you hear we're doing more with less. Well, that's who's doing more with less. You know, our employees. And in a perfect world, we'd have more of them. I think we're going to request more of them. I don't know what the right answer is. But it was over 700 employees. And as you heard the chief financial officer tell you, you know, it wasn't just positions. You know, in an effort at stopping the hemorrhaging of staff, we dipped into reserves for half a decade. We reduced, and in one particular year, 2010, I remember, eliminated all pay raises for, I think, it might have been the first time in about a quarter century. No merits, no COLAs, no steps for the police and firefighters. It was not a pleasant time. So as you said, sir, and I absolutely agree, it's a big picture discussion. And we can provide more information, but just to give you the context of where this organization has been in terms of increasing staff and probably where we're going, because we are in the black, and that's a great thing for the first time literally in 8 years. But we've got some rocky waters ahead of us, as I think you all are aware. Long answer. Did that address your concerns, sir?
Councilman.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm thrilled that you came and joined us on that because it's a discussion at your level, and in regard to being chief of staff, and not totally just targeted to item 10 because we see these things week in and week out, but we need to, in my opinion, we need to have that discussion, and not just a discussion, but I believe that the city at some point should have that analysis, perhaps even an outside analysis of that issue, and look to see where we could start rebuilding our troops. It's just like we've gone to war, we've survived the war, we won the war, we're still standing, but now we got to rebuild the troops, and I'd like to see us do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Councilman Good, did you have anything to say, sir?
Yes,
sir.
Mr. Dow, thank you for getting Mr. Spearman's heart about number 10. We talked about minorities contracts on that. He did get back with me on that with those two different companies. But also, I want to say that I didn't think about at the time. It was in my notes in the back. You know, a lot of times when you have these contracts, Mr. Deanfellow said, sometimes the complaint said that it's what they provide is limited at times. So I think sometimes we have to look at the overall picture because you still have communities that go out to these facilities. I went to an event a couple of times, and I'm like, it wasn't as pleasing as I thought it should have been, having guests in the house. So I think we need to look at some type of analysis of the job that they're doing, and sometimes we need to listen to our own people when we're actually going out and getting these contracts, so we can get some feedback from them as well, so you know what other things that need to be done, and it's not limited. Okay.
I would just say to that we work with facilities division with that and getting the feedback to improve. Custodial services have been made accountable, and I agree we're continuing to work to make our facilities at a positive level across the board. We want everyone to feel welcome to be there.
And thank you, gentlemen. And Councilman Good, did you have a comment about 13, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Dow, we had our meeting, and people had called me about item 13. Tell staff about item 13. I think it's a good thing, especially with Mr. Beer, because with ADA and disabilities, it is a great idea that we apply for this grant.
Right. This is a grant that staff were made aware of with Home Services USA Corporation, and it's a great opportunity with the ADA compliance, but going beyond ADA compliance, we saw this opportunity to be able to take individuals that had any kind of challenges with mobility and to be able to take them to our 3 beaches and to be able to have them right on the water's edge with it. It's basically a material that is rolled out and then secured down all the way to the shoreline. It will be at Cypress Point Park, Picnic Island Park, and Benty Davis. In the area that is kind of a grass and sand, there's a different matting that goes there to allow the access, and then a different material that's used going across the sand. But it will allow for people with wheelchairs, walkers, those types of things, and also even if you have people that have baby strollers, or they have their cooler going across there and you don't catch it in the sand and stop you. So it's really kind of trying to make that facility, which all 3 of those facilities are great for the community, trying to make them available to where all of our residents are able to use them. So we're excited about that, and we've achieved this grant to be able to provide that without that big cost being borne to the taxpayer as well. So we're very pleased.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Okay, now we move onward to committee reports. Councilman Citro, Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move items number 3 through 9.
Second. Motion by Councilman Citro, second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
If I can, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. On regard to item 4, did you require is that as part of the approval of the addendum, does he have to move the substitute? I'm sorry, I'm inquiring of the clerk. Did I say that wrong? There's no substitute.
There is none.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
next.
members of council, I apologize.
We go to Parks Recreation. Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move items 10 through 22.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Goods, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Dingfelder, Carlson, Councilman Miranda, and we obviously may not apparently move item 30. Councilman Miranda.
Item number Finance 35 and 36. Move
Oh, no,
both items.
I'm sorry, sir.
You want me to do the of the 31 down?
Public Works, I apologize. Councilman
because-
Dingfelder is here. Councilman Carlson is not here.
Can we hold 34? Because I'm the third one down and I haven't looked at these. I'm sure they have. I'll be very sincere with you.
Okay, sure. We can wait. I'll wait for Councilman
appreciate it.
Dingfelder. Councilman Miranda, Finance.
I move items 35 and 36, sir.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Maniscalco, Building, Zoning, and Preservation.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move items 37 to 56.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Miranda. Okay, with the
substitute on item 48.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we return to you, Councilman Maniscalco, for Transportation.
Thank you very much. I move items 57 through 64.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Councilman Miranda, your thoughts on 34? Did you need a minute, sir, or?
34?
No, that's fine, John. And Councilman Dingfelder, your committee, sir, Public Works, sir. And take your time. 23 through 34, excluding 30, and I know, and Councilman Miranda, if you had a question, sir.
No, I didn't have any questions.
You're sure? Okay.
And I'll move those items 23 through 34,
Second.
excluding item 30 being deferred, as Mr. Shelby stated.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, now we move onward to our public hearings. May I have a motion to so open?
Second.
A motion by Councilman Citro, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, if anyone is here and going to be testifying today, if you could please stand up to be sworn in and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the
Yes, sir.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, we move to item number 65. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, City Council. Ryan Manassi, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Items 65, 66, and 67 are before you for second reading. The corrections have been made to the site plans, and those certified site plans have been turned in to the city clerk. Staff is available for any questions that you may have.
Okay. Anything from council? Okay, thank you, sir. I'm sorry, what?
No, no.
Oh, look at that. Is the petitioner here, or actually, there you go. Anyone else? Mr. Bentley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Mark Bentley, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa 33602. I represent the petitioner. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the petitioner?
65.
Okay, apparently none, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone here from the public to comment on item 65? May I have a motion to close?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Citro, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Dingfelder, sir, do you mind taking item 65?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I'll move item 65 regarding file AB 2-19-12, an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance approving a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, small venue, consumption on premises, and package sales / off premises consumption, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor on that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 1925 East 6th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in section 2. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, providing an effective date, and let's see, and I guess we incorporated the amended site plan, and what else?
You're good?
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Oh, and also this one, this one makes reference to include the agreements proposed approving the hours of operation incorporated in a letter from the owner, the hours and the dates, the dates that were special exceptions.
Second. Hey, we have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we'll move to item 66, if anyone is here for 66.
Roll call.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, please vote.
Roll call vote on 65?
65, yeah, we have to vote. What am I thinking? Yeah, second. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Motion carried with Carson being absent.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. Next, we'll move to 66. Is anyone here from staff for 66? I guess petitioner?
Yes, Victor DeMaio. I'm sorry, I didn't know if Mr. Masters come up and then I would come up. But either way, I'm here representing Long Ash Cigars in Ybor City with the petition for west zoning, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Okay, thank you, sir. Is anyone here from the public here to comment on item 66?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Goods, do you mind taking item 66, sir?
File AB 2-19-32, an ordinance providing a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, small venue, consumption on premises only, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcohol content, beer, wine, and liquor on that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 1728 and 1730 East 7th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in section 3, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict or repealed, repealing ordinance number 2014-18, providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Shelby.
And that, sir, is a motion to adopt. Is
Motion
that
to
correct?
adopt, sir.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Councilman Goods, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Strike that, I'm sorry, roll call. Excuse me.
Motion carried unanimously with Carson being absent.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Council.
Next, we move to item 67. Go ahead, sir.
Justin Clark, 210 South Woodland Avenue. I'm the COO of Cigar City Brewing, and here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. Anyone here for public comment on item 67?
Second.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Maniscalco, can you take item 67, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance approving a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, large venue, consumption on premises, and package sales, off-premises consumption, and making lawful the sale of beer and wine at or from that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 3924 West Spruce Street, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 3, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, repealing ordinance number 2012-92, providing an effective date.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously with Carson being absent.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilman
Mr. Chair, if
Citro.
I may, any consideration on the ginger beer?
We haven't forgot you. We're working on making it non-alcoholic.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one. Item 68.
Mary Samaniego, Planning, Design, and Development Coordination. Item number 68 is the second reading of a rezoning that was heard at your May hearing. It's a Euclidean rezoning, so there is no site plan, and the applicant is present.
Applicant, please.
David Williams, 301 Harwood Place Drive, Tampa, Florida. I'm here on behalf of Seminole Heights Baptist Church. If you have any questions.
All right, any questions? No? All right. Anybody from the public wish to speak on item number 68? Motion from Councilman Miranda with the second from Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it goes to Councilman Citro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 68, file number REZ 19-49. Move for an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 801 East Hillsborough Avenue and 5315 North Delaretio Avenue in City of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification SHRM, Seminole Heights Residential Multifamily, to SHRS, Seminole Heights Residential Single Family, to SHCN, Seminole Heights Commercial Neighborhood, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilman Citro with a second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor, please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote and Carson being absent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to item number 69.
Julie Hardy, Legal Department. This ordinance is a request to correct a scrivener's error on an ordinance, a vacating ordinance whereby the exhibit was inadvertently not attached to the original ordinance.
All right, any questions? No? Anybody from the public wish to speak on item number 69?
Move to
All
close.
right. We have a motion to close from Councilman Moreno with a second from Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Councilman Miranda, if you would take
Thank you,
number
Mr.
69.
Chairman. Move file number VAC 19-05, with an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-48 ordained by the Tampa City Council of Tampa on March 21st, 2019 to correct a scrivener's error, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Moreno with a second from Councilman Citro. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote and Carson being absent.
All right, thank you very much. We move to item number 70.
Jimmy Cook, Planning and Development. Staff has no objections to this ordinance. I'm here if you have any questions.
Any questions from council members? Anybody from the public wish to speak on item number 70? If you'd like to speak, please, okay. You want to speak on 71? Oh, no, we're,
vacate the alleyway.
Oh, yes, it's a-
this one's, item 70. Not yet, it's,
That's correct, you're right.
This is West Tampa, this one here.
all right.
No, we're in
No,
70.
Anybody
We're in
else?
70.
Anybody wish to
Except for
speak?
71.
Okay. All right, can we get a motion to,
So move to close.
we have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Goods, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Councilman Dingfeld, if you would read number 70.
Gladly, Mr. Chairman. In regard to item 70, file number VAC 19-17, an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning the east-west portion of alleyway right-of-way lying south of Douglas Street, north of Braddock Street, east of Tampania Avenue, and west of Armenia Avenue in Winton Park, a subdivision in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, the same being more fully described in section 1 hereof, subject to certain easement reservations, covenants, conditions, and restrictions more particularly set forth herein, provided an effective date.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder with a second from Councilman Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously with Viera being absent at vote and Carlson being absent.
All right, thank you very much. We move to item number 71.
Jimmy Cook, Planning and Development. Based on council's recommendations from last hearing, the alley has been reduced to vacating, and you should have the amended ordinance. And staff has no objections. Do you have any questions?
All right, any questions from, council members? No? Anybody in the public wish to speak on item number 71?
I did have a question.
Oh, Councilman Dingfelder.
Mr. Cook, quickly refresh my memory on what we tweaked, what we modified.
Originally, the petitioner is asking for the whole remainder piece. As you'll recall, the east portion here was vacated 2002, creating a dead-end alley. The petitioner lives at this location right here. Y'all made a motion to reduce the vacating only to this portion abutting the petitioner's property. There is a resident that has a garage, I believe, right here, the third lot in, on the rear of their property.
Okay.
So you reduced the vacating just to the east end.
All right, so we limited it just behind that, the one lot.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Anyone from the public?
Good morning again. Giselle Johnson, I'm the homeowner that's smack dab in the middle of this alleyway at 3816 West Wisconsin. We purchased that home in 1993, and we have lived there through many changes on that street in that neighborhood, including the apartments at the end, which were, when we bought the home, overflow housing for the offices at McDill. Being that we were a military family, we were inclined to feel more comfortable in that community. Everyone in the community on both sides of the street were retired military officers with their families. The main question that I had before we signed the dotted line was the question regarding the alleyway and could it ever be closed, because there was a detached garage and we have two gates that open up into our yard that we use. Now, in the years that we've been there, when the foundation of the alleyway and our property were diminishing, we have purchased dirt, landfill dirt, and put in there to make it viable so it wouldn't become a swamp, a breeding ground for mosquitoes and such. I ask you to vote favorably and allow it to remain open so that we can continue to access our property, and to answer a question for me, because we're a homeowner. The two houses that are next to me on, if you're facing my home, on the left side are rental properties. The house next to me was a rental property until about a year ago, and the house on the end, God rest Mr. Ingram's soul, he's passed. But we kept all of that open because he used that to put his mobile bus behind his house.
why would it be fair for them to be able to access their backyard, the last house on before the unincorporated street, and we not be able to access our backyard from the alleyway?
Councilman Dingfelder?
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Were you done?
Yes,
Okay.
I only have 42 seconds left.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Cook, will you put that map back up? Ma'am, don't move because I want you to point.
And I wasn't here because I just had knee replacement surgery, so I apologize for being so slow.
No apology. Will you point to the, to your home if you could?
I'm right here.
Okay. So
I'm right here in this little area right here where the,
all right, so here's the good news.
that's my garage.
All right, so here's the good news. See
Okay.
the red line? See the one with the red?
Mhm.
That's the only one that we're vacating. We've decided to, even though originally they asked for all of it to be vacated, but we're not. This motion that's pending right this second, we're only going to vacate behind the red property. We are leaving the other four, the alley behind the other four properties alone, including behind you.
Okay, may I ask another question? When they vacated in 2003, and I was here then, the reason we agreed to it was because the apartment complex owners at that time wanted to be able to control their tenants. It went from military housing to Section 8 to the buildings being sold off individually. Now, my question, and I asked this of Ms. Stephanie, is do they have adequate dumpsters in there for their customers, for their tenants? And would they consider putting, like on the sheriff's chain link fence, that wire across the top so that people couldn't throw anything? Who's holding them accountable for not maintaining their property, which then is affecting her and in actuality could have affected me as well? I appreciate you changing the.
Right.
Thank
So in
you.
regard to this particular hearing on this issue,
Mhm.
Mr. Shelby, our attorney, is going to advise us that we need to focus on this issue and get past it and vote on it. If you want, I'll be glad to meet you in the hall and we can, since I used to represent South Tampa, Mr. Carlson not here, he represents South Tampa now, but I'll be glad to meet you in the hall and see if we can address those other issues, if that works for you.
That works for me, as long as I can get and use my backyard, because you can't find lawn care that push lawnmowers like this anymore. Everybody is riding and they can't get in from the front.
Yes, ma'am.
That's fine. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Public comment on item number 71. Okay, rebuttal, petitioner?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Pointer, 7709 Landcare Lane, Tampa, Florida, 33616. I only asked to vacate the entire alleyway because that's what I was told. I could only ask for the whole thing.
But-
All I really care about is what's behind my property. And Miss Kaylee, the lady who owns the other half, would very much like, and I submitted paperwork from her last time. She's not able to be here today.
Anything else, ma'am? No? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Motion to close.
So moved. Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Citro, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Goods, do you mind, sir, taking item 71?
File number BAC 19-18, ordinance presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance vacating, closing, and discontinuing and abandoning a certain portion of alleyway / right-of-way lying south of Wisconsin Avenue, north of Iowa Avenue, east of Church Street, and west of Del Mabry Highway in Interbay. A subdivision in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, the same being more fully described in section 1 hereof, subject to certain easement reservations, conveyance conditions, and restrictions more particularly set forth herein, providing an effective date. Substitute ordinance being presented for second reading for an adoption. An ordinance vacating and closing, discontinuing, and abandoning a certain portion of alleyway / right-of-way lying south of Wisconsin Avenue, north of Iowa Avenue, east of Church Street, and west of Del Mabry Highway in Interbay. A subdivision in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, the same being more fully described in section 1 hereof, subject to certain easements, reservation, conveyance, conditions, and restrictions more particularly set forth here, providing an effective date.
We have a motion by Councilman Goods, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent.
Okay. And Dingfelder.
He voted.
Oh, my bad. 72, we move forward to item number 72, our public hearings. Yep.
Council Steve McElhaney. I sent an email to you as a chair and to the city clerk requesting this be continued for 30 days. We are in discussions with the adjacent property owner regarding access and availability of the two properties to function together. So we'd respectfully request you continue this for 30 days.
So move for the continuance.
And we have a motion by Councilman Citro, but we will need, and a second by Councilman Escalco, but what date in particular are we looking at? And I want to make sure it's okay on our calendar.
Mr. Chairman, other than the July date of the 18th, the next regular meeting is the 1st of August, and then you have the 22nd of August, and those are your two regular meetings in August.
Yeah.
22nd August.
Is that okay, Mr. McElhaney?
Yes, sir.
Amenable? Okay. Excuse me. We have a motion to continue to the 22nd of August at, what, 10:30?
Yes, sir.
At 10:30 by, I believe, Councilman Citro, I believe a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir. Okay, in 73.
Mr. Chairman, that item, I believe, is a request to, excuse me, that has to be removed from the agenda because no affidavit has been
Yep,
filed.
I was about to say that.
I'm sorry, thank you.
73 has to be removed, and we have a motion to remove this.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Citro, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we move forward to our quasi-judicial proceedings and public hearings. Item 74. And before we go forward, is there anybody here who is planning on speaking who has not been sworn in? Okay. Thank you.
Morning, Jimmy Cook, Planning and Development. This is item number 74, file number VAC 19-19. The applicant is requesting to vacate a T-shaped alley lying north of 28th Avenue, south of 29th Avenue, east of 34th Street, and west of 35th Street. It's a 15-foot alleyway. It's unimproved with grass.
They weren't open?
The alley is partially fenced.
Sir, if I may interrupt you for 1 minute, I apologize. I was just told the 10:30s were not open.
Move to open items 74 through 77.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilman. We have a motion by Councilman Escalco, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sir?
Mr. Chairman, I ask that council also include item 72 in that because that is a continuance.
Okay.
So the motion to
we'll add,
open,
item 72, 74 through 77.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have an amended motion by Councilman Escalco, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. There's no evidence of vehicular use on the alley. It's not within a historic district. It is within the East Tampa Overlay District. It's a portion of a re-subdivision of blocks 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Forest Park subdivision, which was platted in 1923. Proposed vacating is approximately 6,100 square feet. So you can see from the overhead, it's a, do that out there. It's a T-shaped alleyway, 29th Avenue on the north, 28th on the south, 35th on the east, 34th on the west. Petitioner's property highlighted in red. This is what the plat looked like in 1923, subject alleys in yellow. You can see there's only been one additional vacating in the plat. It's T-shaped right there. And a little broader view, this is a half-mile radius. All the green alleys are still open. All the red have been vacated. Subject alleys in yellow. And a couple photos. This is the north-south alley looking north from 28th Avenue. This is the petitioner's property on the right-hand side. This is the north-south alley looking south from 29th Avenue. This is the east-west alley looking west from 35th Street. There's a better shot of the petitioner's property looking north from 28th Avenue. And this is an alley that's not part of the vacating. This is the alley on the north side. This alley continues across 29th Avenue to Lake Avenue. It's actually improved with pavement. It's also a T-shaped alley, so the alley heads north and then heads east. This is another alley that's on the south side. It's grass. And this is another alley that's heading east. It's also grass. Staff has no objections, it's vacating as long as the wastewater easement's reserved.
Thank you, sir. Any
Concludes my
questions?
presentation.
I'm sorry, what, sir?
That concludes my
Oh,
presentation.
thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. About 4 or 5 pictures back, you showed the petitioner's house and the property on the left, which I assume is the subject alley. Can you pull that?
One line. Go to the overhead.
Yeah. Is that the city sign back there leaning against the fence?
I believe it is. Yes, yes, yes.
Any attorneys out there?
We have more pictures.
Any,
They provided pictures when they posted. It's probably one that got moved.
okay, who?
See the sign? Mhm. Did you post one at the street? Did you post a sign at the street, or just back there in the back?
Back there, I had one up there and they said move it back.
I'm sorry, sir, what's the question?
It appears that she did post one at the street, but somebody told her to move it back. I don't know who would tell her.
Somebody told you to move it back.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that it, Ms. Cook?
Is that all your questions?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, you want me to further that question?
Further, what do you mean? I'm sorry.
I have a little concern about notice, just in terms of the sign placement.
Yeah, I mean, if you have concerns, bring it up. By all means, sir.
Continue this item while I review the file with the attorney? Or have the attorney?
I'm sorry to hear you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Shelby.
I'm sorry. In terms of notice, an affidavit has to be provided, showing that notice complied. And I'm just wondering, I can provide that to Ms. Hardy, and she can review the clerk's file and see if that is in fact the case, that we have proof within the file that notice is sufficient.
Okay.
So just to explain, this isn't us trying to be difficult or decide, we have certain important rules to make sure that everybody gets notice. Part of it is the sign, and part of it is the placement of the sign. So staff is going to look at that, and we're going to defer this item for a few minutes.
And also, just to inform council that at the time of the posting, proof has to be taken and an affidavit has to be filed. There is no continuing obligation in the code to maintain that sign continually during the course of the time before the public hearing.
And for staff, how long do y'all need to take a look at this file to ascertain proper notice?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. Let's, we're on
Defer it.
74.
I have a question. Am
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. I have no problem with that. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. I missed
And just state
that.
your name if you could.
Yes, Fran Tate, and I reside at 3405.
Oh,
Place-
and I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not the applicant, correct?
I was gonna,
Belinda Holly, 3404.
Applicant. Okay, well, tell you what, let's do this, just to keep the record clean. Let's wait about 10 minutes until they're finished making sure the record was, or the record, or the notice was properly given and whatnot, and then but that's what they're doing right now. So let's just wait just to keep the record clean just for a couple minutes. And since they're gonna take about 10 minutes, let's go ahead and move forward to, I know item number 76, I believe, needs to be withdrawn. May I have a motion for that, please?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
That was the motion to accept the withdrawal, to withdraw it? Yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and, is 75, Mr. Sullivan. Want to go ahead, sir?
Mr. Chair, I have to recuse myself from this as I was a member of the Variance Review Board at the time, and I will be filing proper paperwork as required by the state of Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Citro. Okay. Go ahead.
Kristen Moore, Legal Department. Yes, Mr. Citro was on the VRB at the time, and he did provide, he was there on the VRB at the hearing on this case. Mr. Dingfelder was also on the Variance Review Board at the time, but he was not present, so it is not necessary for him to recuse himself, just for the record.
I was an alternate.
I am passing out some information for you, council members, that you've become somewhat accustomed to on these types of cases. This is an appeal of the Variance Review Board. There was a hearing on this in March of 2019. And a little bit different than sometimes you see on these cases. The variance was granted by the Variance Review Board, but it was granted with the condition that the balcony never be enclosed. It is the condition that is in question and the subject of this particular petition for review in front of you. The condition was based on the applicant providing a site plan that indicated it would be a porch or a deck that was there, and the Variance Review Board felt that it was justified for the wood deck, but it would not be justified for an actual enclosed building, and that was the nature of the condition that they imposed. You do have the ability to do several different conditions here, or several different motions here. You can affirm what the Variance Review Board did and keep the condition. You can overturn the decision of the Variance Review Board and grant the variance without the condition or with a modified condition if you determine that that is appropriate, or if you determine that it should be remanded to the Variance Review Board, you have that option as well. We have sample motions for each of those in the packet that I have provided for you. As you know, this is a de novo review of the variance, and it's according to the provisions in section 2780 of the City of Tampa Code. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions from council? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Tawanda Anthony, Land Development. As Council stated, this is an appeal of the board's condition. This is for variance number VRB 1933. The property address is 7216 South Juanita Street. The applicant is Perry Sullivan. The hearing date was March 12, 2019. Here's an aerial of the site. Here's the site in question. Here's Juanita Street. Here's a view of the front of the property. Here's a view from the west side. Here's a view from the east side. Here's the site plan. The hatched area in black is the existing wood deck, and the red hatched area is what they're proposing. As council stated, the board did approve the request from the reduction of the setback from 20 feet to 14.6 feet, but there was a condition that was placed on the approval, and the condition was that it was never to be enclosed, and the applicant is here to address the condition. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council? Councilman Dingfelder.
Yes, Ms. Anthony, were you present that evening?
Yes.
Okay. I know we don't get the transcript and everything else, but what I'm a little confused about is, did the original petition indicate or request an enclosed, effectively new enclosed air-conditioned space? Do you know that, or do you have any recollection of that?
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, the good neighbor notice was for the deck extension, so it did not address the enclosed.
So it spoke to a deck, a balcony, a deck, that sort of thing, not
Correct.
necessarily a new room?
Correct.
So
Now-
was it even adequately noticed, or does it make a difference? And then maybe that's a legal question.
Well, I'll let the applicant speak more to it, but I think that they were under the impression that if they were granted the extension, that they would be able to enclose the area.
Yeah, let me ask Ms. Mora that legal question. I don't know if there's a difference because it's a footprint's a footprint, but if was the notice adequate to go for the enclosed area?
If the notice was for a wood deck specifically, then I would not think that I think that the condition was probably appropriate given the notice. I would have to take a look at the notice and see exactly the extent for which it was noticed.
Well, I think that question's kind of critical to today, in regard to our options, so.
Saying that he just handed me the notice, it is to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 14 feet 6 inches. So it could have been an enclosed room, a deck, any number of things.
It's vague and open. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Anyone else from council? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sullivan, sir.
Good morning. My name is Terry Sullivan. This is a picture looking at the deck. This little piece is where the existing deck is, and we were extending. And it shows that the backyard, pretty much a swamp on the right side, place for a mosquito hatchery, and the owner would really like to enclose that to make it usable. The main reason it came the first time is because the deck was so small. So now we want to get a usable space.
Sir, I apologize. Our council attorney just informed me that he didn't ask if you have a DVD of the VRB hearing.
Do you have a DVD? Did you bring a DVD of the VRB hearing for the record?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, members of council, that is presently a code requirement that is under discussion for revision, but it is currently a requirement that before council takes action. Am I correct, Ms. Morrow? I just want to be clear that council can hear all this, but I don't believe it would be able to take action absent that. We cannot waive a code requirement at this point. Council could always change the code.
Council could change the code. It is a procedural code requirement. It is something that they are required to do in order for City Council to take action. So it's the pleasure of City Council. If you wanted to hear this, you could, but it would probably not be appropriate to take action on it until that DVD is received.
Council's thoughts. Councilman Dingfelder, sir.
Ms. Morrow, what's the purpose of the DVD, the current purpose of the DVD requirement in the code?
The purpose behind the DVD requirement of the code was that City Council have all the information of what transpired at the Variance Review Board, so that you would have that in your file and in your record and as part of the competent and substantial evidence that you could consider here today. We have looked at trying to find a way to change that because as we know, City Council does not really review it here, but it is part of the evidence in the record. We've looked at a couple different ways to do that. We're trying to think of the best way to do it, to get these things in writing, so it is something City Council can review in writing, as opposed to just receiving the DVD.
So procedurally, what's your advice right now?
Procedurally, unfortunately, it's probably going to be best to continue this in order to make sure that you have sufficient evidence in the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's what we typically do, and especially we have one council member who will be here when it returns. So I think, my opinion, hearing it today is just, superfluous. Yes.
I agree with that, and I also agree with Mr. Dingfelder's thought that really one DVD doesn't make it. You need 7 DVDs because we can't be in one room together without posting a hearing or something.
Mr. Miranda, you raise a good point. There was a time that, if you recall, these were done in a way where council members received the entire transcript, received all the evidence, and there were 7 boxes that were brought into the conference room that each council member could look at. What ultimately happened, that's why we call it a review hearing now, and it's de novo. But the reason the DVD requirement came into existence is some council members at that time insisted on wanting to look at the DVD and base their decision upon what happened at the Variance Review Board. The way to cure that, if it was ever challenged, is to have that available in the clerk's file so the court would have that to know that that was part of the evidence considered. But that's not necessary, I don't believe, anymore.
And
I agree with that.
With regards to timing, what are we looking at? 30 days, 60 days?
The only timing would be how long it would take the applicant to get the DVD and present it to you. So at your next City Council
Problem is, we have a very tight calendar on July 18th, and we probably shouldn't hear it that day. I I mean, it's,
August 1st would be the one after that, Mr. Chairman.
how's that looking?
I haven't checked to see what's been added to it, but we only have, presently, what I see on the calendar in front of you, only one staff report. I see presently 2 decisions of the Variance Review Board already being scheduled, a review hearing, and a review hearing for a decision of the zoning administrator on the 1st of August.
So how many hearings do we have in August with reviews, appeals?
3 total now.
3 excluding this proposed one?
I believe so, and I can't recall how many, if any, we added to the August 1st that would take up council's time. I hadn't.
What would the next available date be after that?
The next available date would be August 22nd. That has 1 decision, review hearing for the zoning administrator and a review hearing for the VRB.
So we presently have 2 hearings.
Yes.
Thoughts of council, I think August 22nd. Mr. Sullivan, sir.
Can I speak to this?
Yes, sir, you may.
The clerk's office is right next door. Can I go get a copy of it? And I come back towards the end of the meetings or whatever, so we can just get this taken care of. You know, it's pretty simple.
Is that
to go all the way back?
And
you know,
I
all those
agree.
months to do that. That's no common sense.
And you're right, your words of common sense are well taken by me, trust me. Would that be procedurally correct?
If council wanted to delay this to the last item on the agenda to see if it would be possible, but it's not just from the clerk's office, it has to be obtained from CCTV. So I don't know if it's gonna be possible, just candidly.
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan, it appears that that's procedurally impossible, and our regrets for that. Thoughts of council on August 22nd, I believe it is? No objections? Okay. May I have a motion to that effect?
Move to continue this to, item number 75 to August 22nd.
Date and time, please? Excuse me, time at 10:30?
10:30, just like it was scheduled to this.
We have a motion by Councilman Escapo, a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir and ma'am. Now for the item before, 74, I think it is. Are we okay for proceeding with 74? Has a clarification been made with regards to Councilman Dingfelder's inquiry?
Yes, Chairman. Julie Hardy, Legal Department. I pulled up the applicable code provision, and it states that the applicant shall post notice of a public hearing on a sign located on or near the front of the subject property, adjacent and visible from the street or public right-of-way, and not within a building or obstructed by a site feature. Council has some discretion as to whether that would be there's a site obstruction, but in my opinion, I believe it should be renoticed.
Oh, okay. In your opinion, it should be renoticed?
Renotice, an amendment fee would need to be paid to come back.
Okay. Councilman Dingfelder, thank you for pointing it out, sir.
Just the last phrase you said, Julie? What did you say, an additional fee? Is that what you said?
Yes, you'd have to pay an amendment fee.
Can we waive
rather
it?
than a re.
I mean, I don't, you know, I'd prefer not to, obviously it was a mistake, but it's an important issue. Notice is always an important issue. It's a legal issue. You could get it and then it could be taken away later because it wasn't properly noticed.
Yes,
So
you can waive the fee.
you can waive the fee?
The fee can
Okay.
be waived, yes. Or the department can waive the fee.
The department can waive the fee? How do we affect that? Okay. We can make a recommendation, I guess.
For the waiver? Okay. Okay, so what is the pleasure of council? Do we have a motion
Do we have a date to defer this to? Is there a reasonable date to defer this to, Ms. Hardy?
22nd.
Is there, what time do they need to be able to do, renotice?
They have a minimum of 30-day notice period, so.
So tell me how that translates to a next reasonable
It would
date.
probably, 45 days. There'd be no review on our part. The case has already been reviewed, so, I mean, you can cut it right at 30 days, but you gotta make sure you got to get the new sign posted and everything.
Okay.
Affidavit filed, so you
Here,
wanna make sure you give them enough time.
So 45 days takes us to,
I believe the applicant wants to say something.
okay. Mr. Chairman.
In the alleyway, the grass.
And I'm sorry, ma'am, please state your name.
Belinda Holly, property only on 3404 East 28th Avenue. Also in the alleyway, the grass don't grow this high, and I might not be able to get back there unless the city come back and cut it and they don't start dumping more furniture back there.
Thank you, ma'am.
And thank you.
So,
Okay, so the next available date we would have, we need at least 45 days out. We know our calendar is very full. We have a size 38 waist with only size 34 pants, so we have some issues here.
looks like
obviously.
August 22nd is a regular meeting.
Is that the, so we have now 3 items on August 22nd, correct? 3 hearings.
Maybe this would make 4. We presently have 3. Is that- You added 2 already?
What would be the next one after August 22nd?
It would be September 5th.
Okay, there you go. How does September 5th sound to council? And how does, and ma'am, is September 5th, if you could come forward, ma'am. Would September 5th be available, that you would foreseeably be available at 10:30?
Yes, sir. Why is some coming back for?
It has to be properly noticed. Apparently, the notice wasn't proper to the surrounding area, so, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Is the 5th, will you be in town on the 5th and able to come back?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm in town. I'm just on a 6 months probation with my job.
Okay. So you're available on the 5th?
I'm gonna have to be. Yes, sir.
All right, well, we're sorry for the inconvenience.
Thank you so much.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move, I'm sorry, Mr.
You need an excuse to be absent from your job?
Yes.
We would have to give her some, we better write one. I'd like to use your job over an alley.
Yes.
Well, we can come up with something that says you were here. I'm sure Mr. Cook can help with that.
Do we have a motion to
All
move
right,
this item?
I'll move to continue this to the 5th of September. Do we do it at a time certain, or?
Yes, we do. It's 10:30, please.
At 10:30 in the morning, and to include in that motion a recommendation that staff would consider waiving the fee, any additional fee, and also that Mr. Cook will help her out with her notice to her employer.
Yes, sir. We have a
Thank
motion
you.
by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? And Mr. Shelby, on the 5th, now, how many, just for my own edification, how many hearings do we have that day, sir?
I see none.
Okay, good. I see one. Thank you. Next, we move onward to item number 77. Thank you, ma'am.
Melanie Callaway, Transportation Planning. This is a request for a portion of the Brick Street to be removed. As you know, I was here a couple months ago for little pieces that were on East Street when we were doing the ramps, when FDOT was redoing the ramps around downtown. So you can see the aerial here. You can see that these corners were cut at angles on this intersection. It's been like that for a very long time. The developer is coming in to redo this block, to redevelop this block, and we just want to make it bigger. So this one corner is now just going to be straightened out. That's all. We gave a bigger pedestrian area, a bigger area for the ramps. And that's the request, just to remove the brick in this little piece right here. Clayton Bricklemeyer's here. If you have any questions, or let me know if
Any
you have
questions from council?
The only statement is, if you're gonna have the bricks displaced and you're not gonna use them, they gotta go into the storage of brick.
Yes, it gets sent back to the city,
Yeah.
city property.
Thank you. Councilman Dingfelder, Councilman Maniscalco?
I'll defer to Guido.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, if we're gonna get these bricks back, it helps with, if you saw the article about rebricking 7th Avenue and the shortage of bricks, this would be a contribution to it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Councilman Dingfelder?
Welcome, Mr. Brickmeyer. And what I was going to say was a little historically, and Mr. Miranda might be able to help me with this. My wife tells me that, rest in peace, Councilwoman Helen Chavez, and also, of course, Linda Salcena, but Helen Chavez, I think, was the first one to recognize how nice the brick streets were and that we needed to protect them. And I think Linda Salcena then furthered that with perhaps the ordinance. But I just wanted to recognize historically both councilwomen for their efforts in that regard.
I believe you're correct.
Well said. Thank you. Mr. Bricklemeier. Oh, Mr. Bricklemeier.
Morning, Council. I thought I was going to get away without speaking. Clayton Bricklemeyer. I don't really have anything to add. We're really just trying to square off this block. The city wants us to square off the block, and I agree. I saw that article too, and it was sort of well timed that we're planning on donating some bricks back. So, if you have anything, I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Okay, being none, is there anyone here from the public to comment on item number 77? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
So moved, close.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Anyone wish to move this resolution?
I'll take it. Move the resolution.
Okay. Do we have? Okay. We have a motion to move the resolution by Councilman Escaco, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Next, we move to staff report and unfinished business. Item 77, or 78, excuse me.
Eric Weiss, Wastewater Department Director, here to answer any questions you have on this item.
Any questions from council?
Move the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Item 79.
Chuck Weber, Water Department, here to answer any questions you have on item 79.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, do we have a motion to move this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
I have a
question.
Councilman Dingfelder.
This is 79, $10 million. I didn't get a chance to review this carefully or to talk to you about it, but can you tell us about the MBE on it since it's such a sizable contract?
Sure. About $7 million worth of the contract that's being contemplated here is just for purchases of specialty equipment. In particular, sodium hypochlorite generators that help to generate the chlorine that we use for disinfection. So if you take this specialty equipment out, and you'll see it's detailed in the packet, there was 10 firms, I believe, that were selected for minority and small businesses. And they represent, I believe, close to about $1.5 million out of the remaining $3 million after you take the specialty equipment out. So I think the minority and small business participation is quite high for this project. It just doesn't look good when you summarize the totals.
Okay, so Garney appears on our agenda as the primary.
Yes.
As the primary contractor, and then they're going to sub with minority and other small businesses.
Yeah, if you look at the background information, I believe it's page 58, it'll show that after you take that specialty equipment purchase out, Garney is actually doing half of the remaining work, and the subs, the minority and small business are doing, Garney's doing half of, 1/3 of the total remaining work. So the subs and the minority and small business will be doing twice as much of the work as Garney's.
Fantastic. That's what we like to hear. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay. Do I have a motion to move this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Next, item 80.
Chuck Weber, Water Department, here to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions on item 80?
Same question.
Same question. Go ahead, sir.
I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Greg Hart on this one. I'm not sure of the detail for the minority and small business participation. I know that we've been using this contractor for some time, so I'd have to defer to him as to the amount of participation we have on this one.
Okay, do we have a little time to defer this, or are we out of time? Mr. Chair.
Out of time in terms of what this, the project's plans? I mean, we'd have to.
No, my question, do we have time on the agenda to?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, can you check on that, on Councilman Dingfelder's question within the next, let's say, 10 minutes? Is that?
Sure.
Just a quick
what
phone call.
specific question do you want me to check on?
What the minority participation is on for $3 million for item 80.
Believe it's there. I can look that up in just a second if you'd
It's
like.
there,
I
we
mean,
can
it
look
should
for
be
it
right there
ourselves.
in the.
Okay.
It's.
How about this? How about you take a look at that and we move onward to item 81? Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, item 81, is Mr. Snelling here? Okay, we'll wait. We'll go onward to item 82.
Mr. Chair,
For-
that's your resolution, sir.
I presented a resolution for item 82 on Immigrant Heritage Month and World Refugee Day. Any questions from council? Do we have a motion for this?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Citro, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have item 83 for Puerto Rico. And Councilman Maniscalco's request for a resolution. Do you have anything to say about that, sir?
I directed Mr. Shelby to put that together, which he did, and I do believe, Mr. Shelby, did he send it to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, I reviewed it. I'm happy with it. Of course, it is just a resolution in support of Tampa City Council of Puerto Rico becoming the 51st state. And I'm just going to look at something here. So the resolution, of course, supporting fellow Americans from the territory of Puerto Rico in their request to acquire equal rights by becoming a state of the United States, and urging our elected representatives in Congress to support the admission of Puerto Rico as a state of the United States, providing an effective date. So, having said that, I just wanted to move that forward and have that resolution drafted.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, sir, for that. Next, we move onward to item 84 for the town hall meeting. Councilman Goods, I guess we were talking about a...
Thank you, sir.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
10% participation.
That's funny, I found 15.
I saw that as well. If you look at the DMI form, it shows 15, but the background summary sheet says 10. I can see if we can get the clarification on that.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll leave it at somewhere between 10 and 15%. I'd say either way is a good effort, and I'm comfortable with item 80, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have a motion to move item 80?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, I believe, by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, may I also have a motion to give us 10 extra minutes beyond
So
12
moved.
o'clock? Have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Maniscalco, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we move onward to item 84. And let me say something on this, if I may, that, something I was thinking about with this is, and just my thoughts for whatever it counts, that something that may also be beneficial would be a fair, so to speak, FAIR, as opposed to a town hall where there are 7 council members trying to speak on one subject. Just my thoughts for whatever it counts. But Councilman Goods, if you want to talk about that, sir.
I can amend that motion. I think we're thinking the same lines. A lot of people are asking about that as well, and are happy that council is coming to the people. So I think that's a good thing. So if I need to amend that motion, I can do so now. Amend that motion to include that. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the previous motion about the affordable town hall meeting to add a fair along with the town hall meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, sir.
So, what do you envision, Mr. Chair, Mr. Goods, Mr. Citro made the second? What do y'all envision in terms of, a day? Is it a couple of hours? Are we having something formal in terms of a town hall meeting and the fair? And how does the fair work? And who puts it together?
What I like, and I think some of city staff have kind of talked about it as well. I'm envisioning that we have a town hall, but also there's a separate area to where we have all of the knowledgeable professionals there about housing. We have information. People can access in a time frame that people will be able to get what they need to get the help they need for what we're trying to do.
So maybe like an hour of fair in advance, an hour or two of fair in advance for people to mingle and that sort of thing, and then we go into a more formal town hall meeting. Is that something?
I could concur with that.
I don't know. Not trying to run it, just trying to.
No, I can go on that. I just think that we need to make sure that we're in front of the people that ask the questions, and then we have a sidebar session to where it could be session to where they go, they get information, we're there, we're talking with them as well, they get to know us, we get to know them, and we have people who are there that are willing to help. You have different banks that want to be there, that call about the situation. So I just wanted to have a big bang for our buck and have neighborhood community relations help us with this so we can have everybody that's there, so there's no doubt about what we're offering.
And how serious we're.
How serious we are.
That's great.
I'd like,
Mr. Shelby, Mr. Snelling, did
well, we did exactly that 3 weeks ago at the Barksdale Center Senior Center. We had bankers, builders, lending institutions, various not-for-profits, did exactly what Councilman Good is talking about. It was well attended. I think about 150, 200 people came through. We conducted classrooms. We advised them on how to get a down payment assistance. We advised them where they could build houses. We had builders there doing exactly that. What he's describing is a complete repeat of what we just concluded less than a month ago.
Except for the town hall component.
Well,
Except for council's component. I mean, that wasn't.
well, no, there was not a town hall meeting where people, but we did a town hall meeting just last Thursday when I got copious amounts of notes, 3-4 pages of notes on good ideas, and we wrote that, and I in my mind.
I believe, Mrs. Lane, it was good what you did. I applaud what you did. But you have to understand people.
We do.
You have to, let me put it, the way I understand them, okay?
Okay.
You have to understand that folks can't get to Barksdale or don't know what Barksdale is. You have to understand the east side of town has the most population of people who are needing a lot of services like this. So it was great that we had it at nice Barksdale, that has a nice senior center that East Tampa, the east side of town, doesn't have, that they want as well. So we need to bring it to the people. So if we got to go to all 4 districts, I don't care. I want to come to the people. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people that I think need, that are calling me now and calling my office daily about how can I get to talk to Ms. McClary about housing. I heard this thing. I heard they got money. I can get my credit repaired. We need to do that again and again until people know that we're serious and they understand we're here to help them. That's our job.
And Councilman Citro.
Councilman Goods, if I could also request that it be in the evening.
Yes, sir.
To make sure that there are enough people that are away from work or have their children after school where they can also come in and voice their opinions.
Yes, sir.
6 or 7 o'clock?
And,
6.
and there's a lot of specifics that we have to get down on this. I mean, Councilman Goods, it would appear that you want to take the lead in this, not to put words in your mouth.
Well,
but
we have Middleton High School. We have a big, give Ms. Schamberg. I know Ms. Schamberg is calling me about housing. I don't think she'll have a problem using our district, me and her district, at Middleton High School. They have several classrooms. They have a big cafeteria and a huge auditorium.
Mr. Torito, did you wish to say something, sir?
Yes, Sal Torito, Legal Department. You're certainly willing to set any meetings up that you like, but you have to get the administration's buy-in before you can have any administration people showing up. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, yes. And that is well said, obviously, in terms of the administration's involvement in it. Your comment on something that was just had is obviously well taken, and God knows that I appreciate that work, because I know a lot of people went there. What I see is we have a new councilman who is very compassionate and ambitious, and I'm willing to support that compassion and ambition myself, and I think it's something that can only improve the community, but your statements are well taken.
Thank you,
yes, sir. We have a motion by Councilman Goods, and strike that, actually. So what are our plans for this that you propose, sir? Do you propose to maybe come back to us in a month with more formal concrete plans, and then we can set a prospective date, or what do you suggest, sir?
Meet with the mayor, get a good understanding of what, make it bigger. That's my suggestion.
Well, we can set a appointment with the mayor to discuss the issue. I think we don't need to be waiting.
Yeah.
I'll see
No, I
if
understand
we can get an appointment with the mayor as soon as possible, so we can get this moving. I mean, the community is asking, so we've got to move.
I think it'll help make it even quicker. If you meet with the mayor, we can all be in unison and have it all at one time.
And then I guess you report back to us on what that was.
That'll be fine.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
How long do you need, sir? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, how the mayor can see me.
Well, we're out. The next regular meeting
Okay.
is.
How about on July 18th at the end? Is that okay, sir?
That's fine.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Goods, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And next we have for 81, Mr. Snelling, sir.
Hello, Tom Snelling, Planning and Development. I did think quite a bit about this. I had a chance to talk briefly to Councilman Maniscalco, got a little bit more clarification. At first, when I was looking at it, the conversation that got me going down this path, I was looking at various city facilities, community centers, bridges. I looked at a couple of bridges, but that just kind of seemed not really deserving of the honor. And like some of the parking garages, we recently just did Pam Iorio parking garage. Previously, we did Fernando Noriega garage. We have the Sandy Freeman Tennis Center over on Davis Island. So we've done different community centers and things like that with honorarium names, but typically, as the three I just listed off, those have been for local dignitaries and things like that. The second consideration was to stay as far away from state roads and federal roads as possible, because that adds an element of bureaucracy that we really don't want to mess around with that, and that just would add time, and you'd have to contact more people, and you're never really sure about what the outcome is going to be if you're not having more control over it. And the other thing I did, I stayed away from streets that have already been named for other individuals. The most condensed example of that kind of activity is in the downtown area, Fortune Street, McKay, Cass, a lot of those streets were named after previous mayors or previous dignitaries out of history and et cetera. And I didn't want to ruffle feathers and I know we weren't talking about a formal renaming, but when you start adding that honorarium onto that, it could become convoluted and misconstrued, et cetera. So I tried to stay away from that. A couple of the streets that may be in consideration, Lake Street, and these streets tend to be a little bit longer because the councilman and I had talked a little bit about, not just the 2-block little thing. Lake is a fairly long street. It's an east and west artery, and it kind of goes to several parts of the city. 21st is the same. West Tampa Bay Boulevard, given that President Obama went to the West Tampa Sandwich Shop, which was and West Tampa Bay Boulevard is just north of that. I didn't want to touch Armenia because that's actually a state road as well. And the other one I thought was one that passes in front of our Construction Services Center, is a pretty extensive north-south street, is North Boulevard. So there's 3 or 4 out there that have some possibility, and I'm going to ask for some continuity to research it. There are costs associated with such an item. I got with the folks over in transportation signage, and for 10 intersections, given that you put the sandwich double blade or single-sided double blade up on an existing street pole, runs to about $1,700 for about 10 intersections. The streets that I mentioned have closer to 15 to 18 intersections at a minimum, so the cost is going to be somewhere around $2,500, maybe $3,000 to the city. Now, that's going to be an administrative cost if they want to spend that kind of money.
Is it 2,500 to 3,000 for the 10 intersections?
No, for 10 intersections, it's more like 1,700.
Okay.
That includes the cost of the blade. Each blade costs $54. And each intersection would take 2 blades. And then you also have to calculate in the labor from the city labor and the fleet guys that have to go out there and hang the signs. So they gave me back, for 10 intersections, it would be $1,600, $1,700. And what I'm saying is that it could go more depending on the actual number of intersections. 20 would be more like 30,000, or not 30, excuse me. 3,000. So there is a cost element, is really my only point here. What I would like to do is to further circle back with the administration and give them this same rundown of where we are. I mean, ultimately, the street naming function is part and parcel to the administrator's responsibility. The streets are named, they approve them, they come through. The easiest thing to understand is when the subdivision comes in. Up in New Tampa, for example, they propose these street names. We go through, we look at them, make sure there's not duplicates, and et cetera, we approve them. When a street name is changed, and we haven't done that many really, actual street name changes. Since I've been here, there's been maybe 6, and that's in a 27-year period. Street naming changes are very disruptive. One thing I learned in my life, and I was quite surprised about it actually, when I first started, people were getting upset about their address not being right, or their address being changed, or you have a lot here, and so I have to change 4 people's address to keep the sequence going, and the 4 people that I'm changing, they're ready to kill me. So that was, I never had that much of an emotional attachment to my address. But, so point is, actual renamings are disruptive and tough, and they're very rare so far. Kennedy Boulevard, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and now Angel Oliva on 18th Street up through Ybor City, that was a change. Channelside District was a change, or Channelside Drive was a change. Yeah, exactly. What the good thing about that is that there were no addresses on it.
That's true.
I was very happy there were no address, and it was one property owner. So, but yeah, that's the point. It's a relatively rare thing. The honorarium is a little bit more, and frankly, administrations have changed on that. But my goal at this point is to find something that's going to be the least disruptive to the overall community, yet come up with something that is suitable for a president of the United States. They're not going to rename the airport after him, so.
Councilman Niscalco, then Councilman Miranda.
I hear stories. I was a kid, but when Buffalo Avenue was changed to Martin Luther King, and there was I think Buffalo Sheet Metal and all these companies that had, or the businesses that had Buffalo in the name, and complaints and whatnot. But what I would want to do is the honorary one, the least disruptive, like you said. You brought up some good roads, North Boulevard being long, being where it touches District 6 and District 5.
Several neighborhoods, yes, sir.
It's not a bridge, but it's a heavily trafficked road where you have Julian B. Lane, where you have new development where it was Boulevard Homes. There's a lot of action going on. And I think North Boulevard is the actual beginning of downtown Tampa as well. I think those are the boundaries, not crossing the bridge at Kennedy. It starts there. What else? It is the 30th anniversary of renaming Buffalo to Martin Luther King, so the timing is there. That President Obama was in West Tampa, he was in Ybor City, so he's made an impact as a president, not just as a candidate, because he was here before then as well. And I had even thought Central Avenue in the Encore area, although it's quiet, but historically it's the main African-American corridor where businesses were, just like 7th Avenue in Ybor City. Is that a city road, or is that something else?
I believe it's city, and that's a good example. I had
And
not
that
thought.
goes all the way into Seminole Heights. I mean, it's cut off by the interstate, but it's fairly long, and again, touches District 6, District 5. That's really it. I'm glad to see that the costs are not huge. You said it in the several thousands of dollars, not 30,000, but of course a lot less. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, renaming a street, from Dale Mabry to Barack Obama, I mean, that would be huge. I mean, mind that's the state,
The
whatever.
blimp
but,
people would be very upset with you.
Yeah, a lot of,
He was a blimp pilot, Dale Mabry was.
For businesses and whatnot to have to update everything and everything that you mentioned. So those are just my suggestions.
Thank you, Councilman Miranda.
I live on Lake, and I'm not saying this because I'd welcome that to be changed, but Lake is not a good road because it starts at MacDill, ends at Armenia, then you cross the street at Sophia to the river, then it dies again, it's picked up somewhere around Nebraska, and then it goes all the way to 56th Street, and that's it.
I'll take that off.
But it has about 3 different areas that you say, what is this?
Councilman Dingfelder.
Well, a couple things. Some of you might recall President Obama created the funds during the recession, and I can't remember what the name of it was.
NSP, Neighborhood Strategic Program.
Stabilization funds, but which were part of a bigger fund. But my point was that a huge amount of money was provided locally to create the connector, the connector between the expressway and I-4, using those quote Obama funds. So in an ideal world, I'd make a motion to rename the connector the Obama connector, because without the President Obama, that wouldn't have been built. However, that involves state and federal, and I agree with you, Tom, that's probably something we really don't want to get into in terms of making this more political than it should be. My only concern about these honorarium things, Mr. Maniscalco, is I see them pop up around. I noticed that Helen Gordon Davis, the state named Davis Boulevard, Helen Gordon Davis Boulevard, and there's a sign there. But I don't really see the effect of it other than a sign. You know, like one sign, maybe more than one sign. I don't know if that's what you're suggesting, Tom. But at the end of the day, I don't really know that anybody's going to change calling that street unless we actually change the street signs. I don't know that anybody's going to now call whatever we decide, 21st or Lake or whatever, start calling it something different unless we actually change those street signs, and then even then it would take a while. But these honorariums, I don't know. I really don't know what the real effect of them is. Frankly, if that's all we were going to do, I'd rather see us find a nice building, you know, a nice rec center. Or, I mean, maybe we have a significant project that we're going to be working on. You know, either it's already built or we're going to be building it. That would be a little more significant and name a nice building or a nice project. And one other question, Tom, is how about 40th Street? 40th Street was a big project 10 years ago, and we spent $100 million on 40th Street with new bridges and roundabouts and everything else. Does that include state or county?
I know there's a lot of county money in it, and I believe it is an actual county road. Whether or not it's actually a state run, I'd have to find out. I'm not as familiar with all of it.
I mean, I don't know where this is going, but maybe that 40th Street is something. I mean, I think of it as a city road, but sometimes city roads are actually county roads too, you know, because some sort of history. But anyway, and I don't want to impose, you know, myself on that, you know, completely, because you know, I've never represented that district per se, but now that I'm citywide, I guess I do. But 40th Street, you know, that's now a major road with a lot of major improvements. So anyway, just a thought.
Okay. Councilman Goods.
You know, gentlemen, I'm very surprised, but you know, I'm kind of happy that you all have taken an interest in something that was very, very spectacular for a lot of African-American people. Mr. Guido, I appreciate you putting that on the table. A lot of good ideas, but I'm a person that I always like to go to the people, because if you do one thing, some might not like this, some might like that, some might say that's disrespectful, it's this way. So I want it on the table, but I want us to go to the people and see some suggestions from the people. And I see that look, Mr. Snelling, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I know you've been here a long time, but you know, I've been here a long time too, and I've worked actually in the trenches, and I know how things can be. But I'd like to see if we can get some of our neighborhood association presidents and some of those people can get involved to see what their ideas are as well. If we're going to take this venture to do this project, which I want to see this project done, but I'd like to get some input from some of the neighborhood associations and see what they think about it.
Well, the street naming is an administrative function. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Councilman.
I know everything's administrative decision. I know.
You're adding a significant amount of time to this. And at what point, I mean, do you put out and say, hey, what do you think about this? How do you think we should honor President Barack Obama? And see what.
I hear you, sir, and I respect what you're saying. I hear it all the time. Everything's an administrative, and I respect it. I respect the process. But you know, I have to. You know, I was elected by the people. You know, there are two branches of government here. There's an executive office over there, and this is the legislature. We protect the House for the people.
So does the administration.
Well, yeah, but we protect it in a different light. And I understand that there are two branches of government here, but I still, as a person who's elected by the people, and my colleagues who are elected by the people who are also talking about this issue, we work for the people. And we you know, I just think that we need to ask.
I also work for the people, sir.
True.
You know, I don't want to be anything misunderstood about that at all. I've been in public service for 30 years, and I value every day of those 30 years.
And I understand, I respect that totally, but in our role, the people sometimes expect or demand a little bit more, even though we can't give them sometimes what they're expecting. But if we don't give it to them to say, we tried, then what good are we if we didn't try? So I hope you respect what I'm saying.
I
I'm
hear
just
what you're
asking,
saying, sir, yes.
You know, there was an old mayor one time. He had three things he would say. Make it happen. I can remember Mr. Greco always saying that. Make it happen. And he would work with everybody, and I'm just asking to take it back, who we gotta take it back to. And let's see if we can just make it happen, sir, for the people. That's all I'm asking, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
understood.
Anything further on this item? Okay, and Mr. Snelling, I know I speak on behalf of all council, and I say thank you for all your work on this, because obviously you put in a lot of time, and we appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And is there any motion that is necessary for this, or, I mean?
No, just real quick, you know, and what Councilman Good said, I'm happy to go out to myself, not violating sunshine, but different neighborhood associations, different groups, and just get an opinion and get, you know, tell people these are some different options. What do you think? What do you like, don't like? And just have that conversation, and we'll, you know, we'll take it from there. So that's it.
That would probably be good for all the council to do.
Okay. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we go to motions and information reports. Councilman Dingfelder, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got three items for future reference. TICO is working with Tampa General Hospital to do a project where they're actually going to be burying Tampa General Hospital's power feed under the bay there. So right now, their TGH's power feed is attached to the bridge, and they realize that that's a problem in terms of a big hurricane or storm surge. So what they're doing is they're backing up to that brick church that's there. They're going to use their parking lot and set up, and they're going to drill underneath the water, for lack of a better term, and come up. But the reason I mention it is it's going to be disruptive to traffic for 3 months when it pops back up, because they need to take 2 lanes. TICO's taking 2 lanes of our road as you enter Davis Island to do this. And so I just heard about it this week, and I'd like to get a staff report on that issue basically to inform the public about this disruption. I'm looking, and also to request that TICO come if possible, and maybe TGH as well. I'm looking at July 18th because the project's supposed to start right in July.
Sure.
And just during staff reports.
Do we have a second? We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, a second by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Chairman, at the beginning of today's meeting, I referenced my request, and hopefully the council will go along with it, to have a workshop on the budget prior to our first public hearing on the budget. I'm looking at August 29th for that workshop on the budget. So like I say, we could have a little less formal conversation about the budget before we actually get into total public hearing. It's not much before,
Yeah.
but it's a few days before anyway. And that's the only workshop I can see in August.
Yeah, August 29th, I know we have the Bush Boulevard, the minimum parking requirements, and then the 5G wireless. That would be a 4th workshop that day. We also have Police Officer of the Month. Let me ask you.
With all due respect to all those items, I don't think there's anything more important than the
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, and I agree with that 100%. But let me ask you, for the makers of motions for the workshops, I made the one on Bush Boulevard, parking requirements, and then 5G. Are any of those items that can be moved at all?
I think the 5G probably could be deferred a month.
Yeah. Okay, and who made the 5G?
I believe I did, and yes.
Do you mind that?
No, I do not mind that at all.
Thank you, Councilman Citro. Okay, so we have 2 motions here. First, we have Councilman Dingfelder's motion for August 29th to have an item on a workshop for the budget. Do we have a second for that?
Right.
Okay.
And included in that motion, obviously, is for budget staff to be present to answer any questions.
Okay, yes, sir. We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then, and if I may interrupt your motions, Councilman Dingfelder, before I forget, Councilman Citro, you wish to move the 5G item from August 29th to when?
Goodness, when is the next available date for that, please?
September 26th.
September 26th.
Well, that's a long way away. Sure, that, August 26th would be fine, thank you.
Excuse me, what date?
September 26th.
September 26th, excuse me.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Citro, a second by Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank
thank you. And Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Citro. And then finally, a few weeks ago, I brought up this notion that in regard to water, that water and wastewater, we were talking about $3.2 billion. And what I said was, I don't have a problem with us replacing pipes. We need to replace pipes. We need to fix our plants. It's a huge amount of money. It's a 20-year project. I'm all good with that. But what I said was, and this is where this motion is going, is that we need to address that new development pays for itself, okay? And this is not a new concept that obviously that I invented, but that, and I kind of threw it out there and staff said, yeah, we'll get back with you on that. But I wanted to formalize that a little bit and request a report from staff on that issue at that September workshop date. And specifically, I would say as related to the potential use of impact fees or any other type of funding options that would help us make sure that new development, folks who are moving here, that they pay their fair share of these water and wastewater improvements down the road. So that I'd like to workshop that in September with the water and wastewater departments.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Dingfelder. Do we have a second?
September 26th.
Second. We have a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman, as you all have read and heard about the developments in Robles with the cemeteries around the cemeteries that possibly bodies are there. A little history about this Zion Cemetery. Founded in 1901, housed at least 382 bodies with identified death certificates. Recent article questioned where these bodies are now. That the land is now occupied by Rose Park Housing Project and the Columbia Group Warehousing. Mr. Chairman, I would like city staff to conduct and prepare a report regarding the protocol and policies when bodies are discovered as land projects are being developed and the memorial rights that follow. Furthermore, I would like to determine whether or not the bodies buried in Zion Cemetery are still in their original location. Looking for some answers to regarding policies and procedures what the city has, if we don't, if we do. That's my motion on the table.
Second.
I guess second. Do you have a date for it? I would say at least probably would take them I would say at least maybe probably about 60 days to have a detailed report regarding our policies and practice with the city and state and so forth, and what is done therefore there.
So we're looking at, what are we in, June 20th, so July, August, the end of August. What date would that be?
The 22nd.
Okay, so August 22nd, is that good?
That's fine.
Okay. Yes, sir. And I will say about that, and thank you for that, Councilman Goods. I did speak with administration representatives about this issue, because when you're dealing with an issue involving an apparent injustice, obviously time is always of the essence, particularly a historical injustice like this and whatnot. It's my understanding that they are in discussions with the University of South Florida on taking the proper steps to pay the proper respect to these folks, and because this is, I'm sure, obviously you agree by making this motion, is a very, very monumental issue, when we have to give these families and the proper respect. So thank you.
Well, that could be a part of the staff's report if deemed necessary, to see what part they're playing in this as well. I think that's all part of it, to see what procedures are in regards to it.
Okay. We have and Councilman Maniscalco.
No, I just want to give kudos to Paul Guzzo, who put this article together and worked very hard on it and brought this to the attention of so many people I didn't know. I mean, I read Tampa history every day, and I never knew about this cemetery. And something of this significance, you know, you have hundreds of possibly unaccounted graves, you know, built on top and whatnot. This really opens the door to a discussion that is very, very important. That's it.
Yeah, and a lot of souls who lived, I think I read, correct me if I'm wrong, a fifth may have lived during slavery. I don't know if that's a proper number. Lived during Reconstruction, Jim Crow, so very poignant. Councilman Goods.
If I can amend the motion to go ahead and have Housing Authority here to see their perspective on this situation.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Goods, a second by, was it Councilman Maniscalco?
No, Dingfelder.
Oh, Councilman Dingfelder, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Anything further, sir? Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
No, sir.
Councilman Citro.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not filibuster, however, after sitting in the audience for about a year and a half, listening to the former council, especially Councilwoman Capeen, talk about mold issues. That has not been discussed in quite a while. There are still city employees in this building that are suffering the effects of mold. I would like to ask staff to come and report to us about what the issues are, if we are going to be moving, when we are going to be moving, and how long it's going to take to correct these mold issues that have been here for almost 2 years now. Can I pick the date, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sure, let's take a
Is the
look.
26th of September okay?
That would be, I'm sure.
That's a great date.
Mr. Citrick, can I give you a friendly second and ask for an additional component?
Depends.
Yeah, so as related to this building and the facilities management, we all have been feeling the pounding and vibration from the construction across the street. I made an inquiry, just a verbal inquiry to staff, like, are we sure that's not having a negative impact on this building in terms of our structural integrity? You know, 100-year-old old brick building, and we got that severe pounding over there. Apparently, there was a geologic, what do they call it, a seismograph that was installed in this building just for that purpose, or required to be installed by the project. You remember that, Louis?
I remember hearing
Yeah,
that.
that apparently is in the building. I would just like to, since it's a facilities report, tag on to your motion that the facilities also come and give us a report about what's going on over there, how's that seismograph readings, and if there's any concerns.
Councilman Dingfelder, yes, I will accept that. It kind of reminds me of the late 70s with the disco pounding of the music playing in the discotheques, but sure. But I would much rather, excuse me, with that, I would like to also find out.
I'm too young to remember that, Joe, but.
Surely, I think I remember seeing you at those discos, Mark Twain and others. But I'm concerned about the mold issues, and it's actually starting to affect me. So yes, I will accept your friendly amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do we have and I guess we have a motion by Councilman Citro, a second by Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
Nothing today.
Okay, Councilman Miranda. And I have, if I may, move this over to Councilman Maniscalco. Number one, I'd like to have a Tampa City Council commendation presented to Father David DeJulio, D-E-J-U-L-I-O, for his years of ministry at St. Mark's Catholic Church, where he ministers with our former colleague, Deacon Scott Payne, who used to represent District 7 as he is leaving the parish, and this will be presented on June 28th.
We have a motion from Councilman Vieira with the second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then second, I just got word that would appear that House Bill 1159, the private property rights so-called bill, was approved by the governor. That deals with trees. So, you know, I know that I was on this council, Councilman Maniscalco and Councilman Miranda, that worked really, really hard on the tree ordinance. So it would appear that and staff, hardworking staff, and God bless you guys. And it would appear that with this, Governor DeSantis has said that Tallahassee knows best on these issues, and that's a darn shame. And then last, I would like to remind everybody, all the millions of people watching Tampa City Council, to please come out, if you haven't, to the Warrior Games, which are going on. I've gone out every day except for one, and it's a wonderful experience to see men and women who have suffered such terrible life-defining injuries, losing limbs, etc., in service and mostly in combat, and play sports, the likes of which I couldn't do, my overweight self with all my limbs attached, and these men and women do it. They are the best of America, and the best of America is at the Tampa Convention Center. So come see them, please. They are here until Sunday, and Sunday there will be closing ceremonies with Jon Stewart and some country music star who I do not know, Sarah Evans, I believe that's her name. So if anybody loves country, apparently she's very good. So that's it. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes, we go back at 5:01.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, just for the record, could you just say you're adjourned? And
We
you
are adjourned.
Until 5:01?
Yep, until 5:01.
And council, I have a request to help the staff, the review hearing, if you could just leave that material, or I'll come collect it.
I wrote over mine, so.
Then that's fine.
Good shape. Yep.